That's how I really live. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Remember screaming fuck school, just trying to chase a little bread. First that boy dropped out of college, then he caught him a bit. He ran off with this and that shit, that's what so-and-so said. He gon' surge it like some gas, but he know damn well it's mid. He thought his partner crossed him out, but it was all in his head. Oh, you say you want to smoke, that boy brought all of the six. Never second guess a house stepping, don't you never renege. That's how you never renege. That's how you never renege. OG say that's how a real nigga play. That's how a real nigga play. OG say that's how a real nigga play. I was grabbing 2 and brought back 4, that's what that network do. I was in that trap, I was working hard just like the warehouse nigga. I can never trip you all online with that hate in your heart. I'm a businessman, I've been giving credit like I'm working at Vasa. Remember taking trips out to Chico, cause I can't smoke me no mid. I'm trying to stay up out the way, cause I just dodged a little bit. They gon' try to trick you off the street, they see you got shit going. He gon' flag me down to set me up, but shit I'm already knowing. I need that top shelf smoke, only elegant flights. Cabernet Sauvignon, it's been a hell of a night. This kush gon' take me away, it sweep me right off my feet. I twist a split, take a sip, then gonna catch a little drip. I count up 10 every week and then break that shit right down the middle. We double up, we can't do loss, this nigga's not a beginner. I gave a base a couple O's to try to get me a runner. His granny thought he was on point, then found out he a sinner. Come on. Remember screaming fuck school, just trying to chase a little bread. First that boy dropped out of college, then he caught him a bit. He ran off with this and that shit, that's what so-and-so said. He gon' surge it like some gas, but he know damn well it's mid. He thought his partner crossed him out, but it was all in his head. Oh, you say you want to smoke, that boy brought all of the six. Never second guess a house stepping, don't you never renege. That's how you never renege. That's how you never renege. That's how I real nigga play. That's how I real nigga play. That's how you never renege.
Thanks for the slap, Ali.
I try to tell these niggas don't wanna listen. Everybody cheap don't wanna play their position. You gon' pop in the net, but we knowin' it's fiction. I ain't even trippin' about none of that shit, my nigga. I was in them trenches, keeping it too confidential. I risk it all behind this shit I'm implementing. I pray to God every day I don't get implicated. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Stab me in my back, stab me in my back. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. On these hooks, I'm starting to feel like Kareem. I make shit shake, I'm starting to feel like Hakeem. Even to pop an X pill, cause ain't no I in the team. I heard a gangster started singing, I guess that nigga thought he was Jodeci. Heard a gangster started singing, that nigga thought he was Jodeci. I don't understand what these niggas do when they be trying to approach a G. I been staying to myself, I'm trying to stack up this trophy. I try to tell these niggas don't wanna listen. Everybody cheap don't wanna play their position. You gon' pop in the net, but we knowin' it's fiction. I ain't even trippin' about none of that shit, my nigga. I was in them trenches, keeping it too confidential. I risk it all behind this shit I'm implementing. I pray to God every day I don't get implicated. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Stab me in my back, stab me in my back. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. They say life's by choices, you can't even avoid it. Try the best, they cross you out, then double back to count on you. These niggas ain't tryna put in work, but they need all the employment. I was in the trap thinking about white papers and roadmaps, nigga. This devil gonna do his best to walk you down to like a staircase. I just talked to my lawyer last night, he called me, told me they finna drop the case. I protect my energy, I can't let these niggas infiltrate. That boy internet gangsta, he only thuggin' in Twitter space. I tried to tell these niggas, they don't wanna listen. Everybody cheap, don't wanna play their positions. You gon' pop in the net, but we know it is fiction. I ain't even tripping about none of that shit, my nigga. I was in them trenches, keeping it too confidential. I risk it all behind this shit I'm implementing. I pray to God every day I don't get implicated. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me. Stab me in my back, stab me in my back. Don't stab me in my back, look at my face and betray me.
Peace, peace. Let me get this loaded up. I'm about to get this loaded up right now. Hold on, I got my son with me. All right, bet. So day two, grifting off low IQs. We got to tap back in, and I'm trying to figure out why everybody automatically spinning this narrative about the left being the reason or the one the gun behind this Charlie Kirk incident, which is crazy to me. They're already trying to angle this shit politically with no evidence, really evidence to the contrary, you know. But I want to go into Nick Fuentes' feud with Charlie Kirk and try to get an understanding of why the right had this issue with Charlie Kirk, right? Because they're trying to push it like the only people who have an issue with this man is the people that's on the Democratic side. So we're gonna show you what's really going on.
Three different people, all of them telling me that I must watch this clip.
Of course, the big story of the past 2 years is that Israel is becoming extremely unpopular. That's to put it mildly. Anti-Semitism has become mainstream. Let's put it that way. What? People are sharing my clips, Jake Shields, Dan Bilzerian, Myron Gaines. And people are not just criticizing Israel. They're talking about Israel's role in 9/11. They're talking about Israel's role in the JFK assassination. They're talking about Israel's designs, which have brought America to war in the Middle East for 25 years. They're talking about Jewish power and a grand international Jewish conspiracy being perpetrated by organized Jewish groups that coordinate with each other on an international level. Everyone has become aware of this reality.
Could you imagine that one German leader taking a time machine and watching that clip?
Das war ein Befehl! This is not opinion. This is not hatred. Everyone, because of the liberalization of the internet in the past 2 years, because of Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter and the free speech on the platform, because of TikTok, because censorship has receded, everybody is becoming aware.
I just got a phone call. Hold on, so my screen, the restream acting funny. I just got a phone call. Let me back it up.
Aware of the censorship has receded, everybody is becoming aware of the brutal reality, which is that Western civilization seems to be influenced extensively by an organized international Jewish conspiracy. Narratives about atrocities like the Holocaust and other historical things up to and including October 7th are being used as emotional blackmail to guilt the native populations into accepting a melting pot, multiracial, diverse, tolerant society. This has allowed a small minority that is both a religious and ethnic minority, which is 2% of the population, and they use that influence and that power for nefarious purposes. They use it to consolidate their influence and their wealth. They use it to empower Israel.
The multiculturalism, interracial stuff, that doesn't bother me. But let's not pretend that nationalism isn't at odds with maximizing profit for the bankers and for the 1%.
This group is inspired by a religion which is contrary to ours. Although much has been said about Judeo-Christianity, people have learned that this is not only not a real thing, but actually an oxymoron. Judaism is defined by its rejection and actually hatred of Christ and Christians.
I wouldn't say that it's defined by it.
And Christianity is defined by its deification of Christ. All of this has come to light. Because censorship and cancel culture has gone away, because the truth is no longer being suppressed actively and intensively, now everybody is becoming educated and aware. As a result, people no longer support Israel. People are sympathizing with Palestine. And this has created a real problem, because a massive operation has been built up in America to lobby our people and our government on Israel's behalf. Because if we support Israel, we vote for pro-Israel candidates, or at the minimum, look the other way. And the money and the support and the guns and the wars keep flowing in Israel's direction.
Stop. Don't you know about HEI? HELOCs are loans. You borrow, pay interest, and make monthly.
Now that Israel is losing that supportive constituency, not just on the left wing, but increasingly on the right wing, among evangelical Christians, especially among young people of every stripe, this is becoming a big long-term problem for Israel.
Religions having an influence over government is not a new concept. It's happened all throughout history, and it's not exclusive to Israel. Even at local levels, churches and religions can have effects on their local politics. The Mormon Church has a huge influence on the laws and politics in Utah. This is what you would expect every religion to do to protect their best interests. What Nick is really doing is pointing out who has their hands in what cookie jars.
So it is in response to this problem for them, not for us, it is in response to this problem for the Israelis that Charlie Kirk hosted a focus group to give a hearing, let's say, to give a fair hearing to the students, to the radicalized youth that are apparently so anti-Israel. They call it a focus group, and the stated intention is to collect and listen to the opinions of the young people, in reality, it sounded more like a struggle session from some sort of cult. And like every other cult, like Scientology or like any other multi-level marketing scheme or something like that,
The nerds are congregating for the ceremonial banging of the plastic toys.
just like any other cult, it gives the appearance of an open atmosphere where people are free to express themselves. But in reality, there's sort of a sinister undercurrent. There's a weirdly hostile undercurrent that's barely veiled by a facade of false empathy. And again, the pretense was this is a focus group. We're here to listen. But like every other cult, just underneath the surface, it seems like there's an ulterior motive there. And the ulterior motive was to sort of finesse and massage what the students were saying, and to put words in their mouth, and to actually then mirror back to them, project back to them what Charlie Kirk wants them to be saying or wants them to be thinking. He's not acting as a good faith listener, but actually as a bad faith translator. His job is to listen to what you're saying and state something that sounds similar back to you, but is different in some key ways. And so many of the students were complaining about Israel. They said we give them 4 and 8. Many of them were actually well equipped. They sounded like groypers. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were fans of my show. Among the complaints, they said Israel spies on us. Israel was involved in the Epstein Files. We've given Israel $300 billion since 1948. And that's comparable to the aid we gave to Ukraine, but nobody talks about that. They said that Israel dragged us into this war with Iran. They said, in particular, the official position of the State Department up until the bombing began was that we wanted, as Americans, diplomacy and negotiations. But Israel vetoed that and bombed Iran and torpedoed those efforts. This is what Turning Point students were saying. It ran the full spectrum. They even talked about the Judeo-Christian myth. It ran the full spectrum. Almost every vector that you can think of how or why we might criticize Israel or Jewish power and our relationship with them. Almost everything. And Charlie Kirk is listening to the opinions of the students, but he's feeding them back this weird narrative. And this is very important. You have young people who, for the first time in their lives, or maybe for the first time in this country, young people are hearing this. For the first time, because of a liberalized social platform ecosystem, all of this was heavily censored. No one was allowed to say this on Fox News. No one was allowed to say this on Blaze TV, on PragerU, on Daily Wire. Yep. No one was allowed to say it anywhere. And if you did say it, like I did, you got canceled. And you were censored, you were blacklisted, you were smeared. People said, don't listen to that guy. That guy's a hater.
And this is why the centralization of media is bad for journalism, because you can have one group of people that can pretty much just shut down any information from getting out there. Who knows how long this video is going to be up, or even if YouTube's going to recommend it. I mean, share it with your friends and family. That's probably the only way that this video will be seen. As far as I know, Nick's been banned from YouTube. Is that still true? I don't know.
And so for many years, people could not even hear these things, let alone feel comfortable believing them or thinking about them or, God forbid, saying them out loud. Now you have all these young people who are mainstream, relatively normal looking, in college, at Turning Point, saying these things. And this is a very positive development because, of course, we do have a real problem. As I said, it's a problem for the Israelis that people are becoming hip to this, but it's good for us that people are becoming aware. And it seemed that Charlie Kirk's job was to take all of the complaints and chew them up for them and spit back out something digested, which is something like this. Well, you don't have a problem with Jews. Well, we shouldn't talk about Israel too much. Well, we're not cheering for Iran. Well, we're not anti-Semites here. Real anti-Semitism is creepy. All we want is this. We just want this. All we're saying is this. Now, whenever you hear words like that, understand what those words are. They're minimizing the issue. They're minimizing, they're circumscribing. Do you know what it means to circumscribe? It means to draw a boundary around, a boundary, a gate, a fence. His job was to say, I'm hearing all these things, so what you're telling me is all we really want is to focus on housing. And let's not talk about Israel. All we're saying is we don't want foreign aid. We want to decouple in terms of foreign aid from Israel. We're just saying this. We're only saying this. All we're saying is this. Minimize the issue. Create a new false category of people that are criticizing the Netanyahu regime and Jew haters. I'm going to tell you what's acceptable to criticize and complain about and how to criticize and complain about, while also necessarily, by negation, telling you what's outside of bounds. What's inside of bounds? You're allowed to say we can't give Israel foreign aid. You're allowed to criticize the Netanyahu government, criticize Judaism itself, say that Jewish people have a dual loyalty to Israel because they're Jewish. That has implications for our domestic security. Talk about this idea, Israel having a right to exist. Does it follow then that they have a right to ethnically cleanse Gaza and that we have to help them? All of that is outside of bounds, and that's Jew hatred.
Israel's influence on the U.S. is a problem, but let's be honest with ourselves. They're not the reason that you can't afford a home.
If you know how I feel, why would you say that? Like, you put me in such an uncomfortable situation. Like,
just found my actual dream bag on eBay. This super rare center from a seller in Philly. Sports car driving in stilettos kind of babe. And it came expertly authenticated, like legit real.
Talk about Charlie Kirk. It was interesting. I was in Chicago at Turning Point, and I got you. I was in there, and I grabbed you a pass. I'm like, oh, Nick, come by. You're like, oh, no, I don't think I can come. I'm like, no, I got you a pass. Come through. You showed up. We go walking through. Security rushed out, like 15 security, escorted you out. I was so confused. I'm like, well, I guess I was wrong about that one. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
It was insane, the reaction they had for just walking in with a pass that I had. I got one of my passes for the booth I was at, and they threw you out. They said they're going to arrest you for trespassing. It's just, again, it just shows you the threat you are. So what was do you have a long feud with Charlie Kirk, or what was that? That really surprised me, that reaction.
Well, yeah, Kirk and Shapiro are slightly different, but back in 2019, he was doing this big campus tour. He was going to all the college campuses, giving doing a speaking engagement. And he would go to these different events, and he's supposed to be one of the more right-wing guys. Shapiro's more of your traditional conservatives. Charlie Kirk was really more MAGA aligned, a little more nationalist. So this is coming from maybe the most right-wing element in the mainstream. And he would go to these events, and he would say things like, we need to bring in 50 million legal immigrants. Really super conservative. And he would say, this was the one which is totally outrageous. He went to some kind of fundraiser with Zionists because I forget the organization, but the step and repeat banner behind him, it was in Hebrew, it was some pro-Israel group. And he's speaking in front of them, and he said that when it comes to the United States, he said, we're unique because although he loves the country, loves the Grand Canyon, and he loves the topographical features and so on, he said you could wipe out the United States tomorrow, and if you went to a desert island and you had the Constitution, he said that would be America.
Wow.
Get rid of the people and the land.
When did he say this?
He said this years ago, probably 2018, 2019. But here's the but. He said, so with the United States, we're unique because we are all about the Constitution. People don't matter. The land that we love doesn't matter.
People don't matter,
It's
huh?
all about the paper, which is not true, by the way.
I think our land matters. I would strongly disagree. I think our land matters, and I think the people matter.
Totally.
A lot. I guess they don't because they're just flooding them across the border.
Well, and Liberia has our Constitution. They're not doing
No, exactly.
So
I think the people matter quite a bit.
Right.
And our land is pretty amazing here. I think it's the most beautiful country in the world.
Right. Well, we're a nation, Well, and here's the important part. He goes, Israel is not like that. He goes, because the Israelis have a connection to the land. He goes, you take away the land from Israel, it's no longer Israel. And it's like, hang on a second. So the American people can be replaced by immigration. We could lose our land. That is not essential to America's identity. But Israel must have the land and must have the people, and the Arabs got to go, and they get to do deportations, and they get to have a border, and they get to, because there's such a striking difference. Like in America, you can't talk about limiting immigration. You can't talk about how the country's becoming minority white. In Israel, they literally say we have to get Palestinians out. There's too many of them. In other words, they want to make sure it's a majority Jewish state to protect the identity and culture of the country. And so he was in this position where he has to justify the double standard. But he put it on display right there, which is nationalism for them, but not for us.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. A lot of the people that push the open borders here happen to be Jewish, like the Mayorkas, tons of them can't go through it, and then they never ever push it for Israel. Same thing with gay marriage; it's banned in Israel, but not here. Interracial marriage banned in Israel, not here. I mean, I don't think it should be, but that gay marriage, yes, interracial, no, but you can't interracial marriage, you can't do in Israel.
No, well, and it's a very conservative country. And this stems from the idea that, look, the Jewish people for 2,000 years were in exile. They did live in, and this is their claim to the land historically, is that they did live there. They had kingdoms of Israel, and then Jesus Christ arrived. And Jesus Christ said, time's up. You rejected me, and now you's got to go. To paraphrase from the Bronx still, now you's got to go. So they tore the veil. The temple was destroyed when Christ was crucified, and then shortly afterward. And then after that, they were banished from the land, and they went into exile. And they went into Europe, they went into Africa and India, they went all over. And for 2,000 years, they could not resettle the land. And so it's only in the past 100 years that the Jews have resettled the land, which we call Palestine, in significant numbers. And so what you have is this dynamic where you have the Jews that remain in exile, the Jews that reside in the United States and Europe and elsewhere, and the Jews that now live in Israel. And what you find is that they have different rules for the Jews in exile and the Jews in Israel. So, for example, there was a debate between Bret Stephens and a rabbi. Bret Stephens, he was a columnist at Wall Street Journal. Now he's at the New York Times. Started out at Jerusalem Post, big-time Jewish neocon. And Bret Stephens had a debate with a rabbi, and the debate was, is Trump good for the Jews? That was the title of the debate. And they're debating, is he good for our collective interest?
Yeah.
And in the debate, Bret Stephens said the reason why Trump is bad for the Jewish people is because he is hostile to the liberal international principles that are good for Jewish people.
Wow.
And there's a premise here. There was an article in The Atlantic a few weeks ago. It said this is the end of the golden age of American Jewry. It was written by a Jewish person. And it said that 100 years ago, you know who invented the melting pot narrative about America?
A Jewish person.
With the explicit intention, because when they got here, the native people realize they're different. They speak Yiddish, they practice Judaism, they're ethnically different. And so like the Irish and Italians, Jews were not welcomed. So Jews thought it would be beneficial for them to be tolerated in the country and for them to ascend the ladder, that the country now be multicultural. Now America's not a white Christian country. America's for everybody. We're a big melting pot. Anybody could be American. And they say it, that opened the door for them to rise up and for them to become influential in Hollywood and government. And, the quotas in the elite universities were eliminated. Now they're comprised significant.
So for Nick Fuentes, in order to be American, you got to be white. Let's start there. So I don't even understand the black conservative position. I really don't. In order for you to even be American, you have to be white. He don't believe in this multicultural. Jake Shields, he said something where he was like, in Israel, it's illegal to have gay marriage. It's illegal to be interracial couple married. He only said it because he know Nick Fuentes is against gay marriage and he's against interracial marriage. Like, bro, and you running around this political part. Half of these black conservatives, they only conservative because they run around this bitch chasing after the white girls. Like, or the white guys. For some of them dudes. For the dude at the Charlie Kirk event, the black dude, they jumped on him and told him, they don't tell me how, I think the dude said, tell me how gay sex has anything to do with pushing the conservative agenda. Said it to the black gay conservative. They not fucking with you, gang. It don't matter if you gay, straight, you black over there. So what you doing over there? And you, first of all, for you to be gay and be black and got the nerve to go over there to the conservative side and try to be an influencer is crazy work. But this is the climate that we got right now. And I'm listening to Nick Fuentes explain his feud with Charlie Kirk, explaining how there is a disconnect between what he is saying is like the base and basically the establishment of the Republican Party. He's saying the establishment of the Republican Party, they have an allegiance to Israel and they have an Israel first agenda, and they allow Israel to come here and dictate what the agenda will be on this soil. It sounds like they're really jealous, honestly. When I be listening to it, it sounds like he's jealous of the Jewish people and the fact that they're able to wield their white supremacy and actually get the results they're trying to get. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like he's angry that these ethnically white people have an ability to make everybody do what they say. That's what he sounds like he's upset about. So he see they got all this power, he see they got all this money and all this influence, and he trying to figure out how come they get to be ethno state and we can't have our own ethno state. They want the whites on the state. He trying to figure out why he can't get him white on the state. Why he can't have no white black marriage in America. This is what he really upset about. He mad because Charlie Kirk is taking money from AIPAC. It's all of these things that he accused this man of, and then for y'all to turn around and be pushing the narrative that Charlie Kirk had a lot of enemies on the left. If anything, Charlie Kirk platformed so many young left-wing college students in his debates. So many people made names for themselves from going to these Turning Point USA events and having debates with him. So it's like this narrative shaping is lazy and it's very Soviet Cold War-ish. But when we finding out about what was going on in the Cold War, now we find out this shit was way more complex than we understand. The fact that during the Cold War in St. Louis, they were legitimately testing on U.S. citizens, testing war acts on U.S. citizens in the event that it might take place in the U.S. Like, the Cold War is a whole different game. So the fact that niggas sat back and was like, yeah, Russia do all the propagandizing. The Soviets is the bad guys. China bad, Russia bad, North Korea bad. And then fast forward to today, we looking at the boogeyman in real time, and he got all the characteristics of the Soviet. I'm just saying.
Someone got their wake-up call. Oh my goodness. So before I get into the topic, one thing I'm just absolutely confused by is why is it that all these racists, white nationalists, white supremacists, whatever they call themselves, whatever their moniker is, why are they always whining, bruh? I don't understand that. They constantly want to say that they're high IQ and, they built civilizations. Every single time I see this demonic lineage of evil group, they're always whining about something. When it comes to women, they're always whining about women. Oh, they don't want me because I'm not tall enough or because of this or because of that. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with because you're whining. You're a whining little baby, bruh.
And they should be allowed to say that out loud. Okay, men are allowed to talk about what they want and what they need in relationships.
And then you get these dudes who are asking women like, have you ever slept with a black guy before? Huh? Have you ever slept with a black guy? And it's like this insecurity is very off-putting to not only dudes, right, who don't want to be around you. That's why many of you guys are alone in your incels, but it's also off-putting to women.
But the problem is that every time a man talks about that, you've got women like Megyn Kelly who get upset about it. They get angry.
So then you come to find out why you're alone is because you're just a miserable person. and you constantly shift the blame. They're always blaming somebody. I noticed that. They're blaming black people. And then, if it's not the black person's fault, they blame, Jews. And you start talking to them, it's like, wait, you believe white Jews want to destroy white people? Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're lost, man. They're absolutely lost. And every single time, without a doubt, bruh, when you look at this group, when you look at the people who talk like this, they're usually frail. They're usually, out of shape. They're usually bald. There's something wrong with them in some type of way. Always, always. You'll never see them as how they view themselves, because they always view themselves as like some Chad alpha male who's like six-pack and everything. And none of these people ever look like that. None of them. They never look like that. So I don't know. I can't help it, because I'm listening to some of these people trying to hear what their argument is, and it's just whining. That's all it is. But speaking of whining, we go to, as far as their Lord and Savior, a homosexual Mexican known as Nick Fuentes. Oh. I kid you. I kid you not. It's hysterical to me. Side note, one thing I find humorous is that when you look on like Twitter and some of these social media, is that many of the most racist accounts aren't even ran by white people half the time. Half the time, it's like a non-white person that's running that account, like a Latino, a Cubano, it's always them. And it goes back to the meme where it's like white supremacy 101 username, and it's like, oh, you look a bit browner than I expected. It's hysterical. And then the same thing, the inverse of that. When it comes to a lot of the black accounts that you would think are black people, they're not. They're like white people. It's just, the internet is a wild place, I will say. But back to our homosexual Mexican known as Nick Fuentes, okay? And I know many people are coping with the fact that, he is what he is. I also find that interesting is that many of these people who claim to be Christian and whatnot, they're always undercover. Always. Like half the time, they're always undercover or doing some degeneracy or what they deem to be degeneracy. And you just can't make this up. So you have Fuentes who calls out Jason Whitlock, part of the Coon Force. And he's telling him that, hey, you don't know anything about sacrifice, and that the only reason for your employment is that, essentially what I've been saying is to give a shield to white people so that they can avoid the label of being racist. And this is a tactic that, as I've said before, has been implemented with much success and has become a very big business on the right. You have, white people who hire these blacks to spew off, racist talking points. But because it's becoming behind a black face, they're not labeled racist. He's essentially saying everything that I told y'all.
And by the way, you are a token. Hey, Jason, you're a token. You are in conservative media as a black guy that can confer upon white people the dignity of not being called a racist for having their views. That's why you get paid.
Damn, when people wanted to criticize me, oh, that's not true. I'm like, yes, it is true. Okay, you may not be aware, but that's why they have a Kundazoans. That's why they have a tantrum. That's why they have these people exist. It's because of racist white people, and that's the comedy part. That's the comedy part. The comedy part is Fuentes is like saying, well, I can't say it because I'll be attacked. And it's like, yeah, because it's racist. That's why I don't, like, that part didn't click in his head. It's not because of, whatever belief you have as far as with white guilt and everything, because that's another thing they always go. It's the reason why we're not in charge is because of white guilt. Too many people are guilty for being white and everything. It's crazy stuff, bro. Like, these white nationalists, white supremacists, this group is like the ultimate victims. They are the forever victims. And it's always the fault of Jews or black people or some minority group that somehow negatively impacted their life to the point where they're just, oh, there's nothing they can do and it's woe is me. I find that hysterical instead of the narratives that they give everyone. Because the narrative is, hey, lift yourself up by the bootstrap. Stop being a victim, be a victor. But they never happen to adopt that narrative for themselves. Never.
And that's why I don't, because I didn't have the privilege of being born black. I was born white, so there's a limit on what I can say.
It's always advice that they give to everyone else. When it comes to them, no, you need to understand, it's real, bro. It's real what's going on. It's a part of a delusion, right? A very delusional individual with severe insecurity issues. And that's what many of these people are, unfortunately. And now I will say this is interesting, because what he's trying to say that the real privilege is black privilege. Is that people like Whitlock and whatnot, they have black privilege because they get to say what white people can't due to the color of their skin. And I think he may have a point.
Especially in the conservative space, that blacks have had it easy. It is, and I don't doubt that he's a sincere person. I'm sure he's a sincere person. I'm sure he's genuine. But you are playing by a different set of rules, pal. You have training wheels on. You think you've earned it? Everything you have. Take a look around at your studio, your contract, your employees. If you said the stuff that you said as a white person, your ass would be f***ing gone. And everybody knows that.
Oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
We saw this, as I've said before, with Candace Owens. Okay, they promoted her up into success because she was saying all the racist, anti-black stuff that her audience wanted to say. And I think he's really, I don't know if he understands this, but he's letting the cat out of the bag, right? He's saying the quiet part out loud, which is that the majority of the Republican Party, the majority of conservatives, the majority of this little clique of lineage of evil are racist.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But they can't come out and say that they're racist. They can't come out and spew this racist drivel out to the American people, because there are those out there that won't have it, that they will, ostracize them for. And rightfully so. That's what's supposed to happen. But they're upset that they just can't come out and say racist stuff. And there's pseudoscience and there's pseudo-intellectualism. They're upset at that. So now what they do is they get a black person to come out and say it. Because now they think, well, you can't criticize them because they're black. This is a black person saying what I'm saying, so now what? And it's like, no, there's no difference, right? That would be essentially having, Stephen from Django come out and talk about black people. No one is really buying what he would be selling. It's the same thing when it came to Candace. No one's buying what she's selling. The vast majority, I would like to believe the vast majority of the country has an IQ above room temperature, saw right through the grift, saw right through the foolishness and the talking points. Like every single time, I don't know, they think that if they put a black face in front of it, that everything's A-okay. And that's not the case.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
The only time that's okay is for Republicans. That's what they don't even understand. Because when you think about it, the issue is not black privilege. The issue is that you guys know what you're saying is racist. You guys know what you're saying is wrong. So you're doing everything in your possible power to give you, an alibi. That's all you're doing. And you think that no one sees this. Because when I call out a tantrum or the rest of these coons, what do I get, in the comment section? You get a bunch of white Republicans, once again, defending their slave, defending their Stephen, because Stephen's one of them. They go out and defend them. Oh, you're racist. Oh, why are you talking like this? Why are you talking like this against a black person? It's like, what are you talking about? It has nothing to do with color. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with you using these black people who are usually 9 out of 10 in financial, disarray, and exploiting them to promote your racist narrative. That's what it has to deal with. That's all, in many cases, what a coon or a Sambo is. It's an exploited individual. That's all they are in most part. Because no one comes out the womb hating themselves. No one comes out the womb, hating their people. No one comes out the womb talking, evil of their people or talking down to them or belittling them. That's not what naturally happens. That is a learned behavior. And what you have to understand is that in this country, that is a behavior that results in financial stability, in financial growth. So if you have done everything in your power systemically to attack someone's financial stability, to attack someone's financial wealth, right, their generational wealth, then naturally, yes, it's going to have some people who don't mind selling out the group to attain that dollar.
Damn.
And especially if you have a media that's constantly forcing upon these people, hey, the dollar is everything. Get your bag, get your money up, all this. Yes, of course. So what you've done is that you're profiting off of the destruction of a group of people that you don't even care about. It's a sick system, but that's what it is. And that's what the Republican Party does. It's as simple as that. But then he goes into, once again, the woe is me. He goes into the, white people are tired of putting up with this. We're not going to take it anymore.
I'm trying to tell you how white people feel. And I'm trying to tell you the truth. And here's the truth of the matter. White people are just done. We're done with the excuses. We're done with the white guilt. We are done with crybaby, ethnic narcissist black people that cannot handle an adult conversation about race. We're done. We pay up the ass in property taxes not to live near these people.
This concept, I don't know where it stems from. I genuinely don't. Where is this concept that this group of, angelic white people have just been so kind and, have been coddling black people for the longest? When in history has that ever happened? I'm genuinely curious. That has never happened in history. That has never happened where you've coddled the black people. Never. They've always been overt and direct with their racism. And then when they put in laws so they can have loopholes to inject and continue the racism. So now that they have plausible deniability, because now they can say, well, what law says that you can't build a business as a black person, huh? There's no law against it. So their wickedness knows no bounds for these group of people. It just knows no bounds. But I just find it, I find it humorous. At the same token, he's saying what I said, which is fact when it comes to the Sambos of the right, but also is a victim and is screaming and crying about, oh, white people aren't going to take it, and this is racism, and I'm just like, yo, which one is it? Are you guys a group of people with high IQ, and you come from a group of people who build civilizations and are Vikings and are strong and an alpha and all this? Or are you whining and it's the Jews' fault and it's blacks' fault and, I just want to have a family, but women don't like me because of feminism?
Until our feminist matriarchal society beats it out of him or convinces him that he can never have it. He can never have the thing that his grandfather had, and that his grandfather's grandfathers had, and his grandfather's grandfathers had, and on and on and on.
Pathetic.
Like, which one is it, bro? You trying to have your cake and eat it too. So, goodness gracious. Pick a lane, pick a struggle. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not you believe, Lucas, it is their fault. It is their fault, okay? It's all this race-mixing propaganda out there. Or if you can't believe, no, y'all are just a sad little people. I don't know what to tell you. Y'all a sad group of people. I don't know, do better. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Nevertheless, if you happen to disagree, you know where to find me. Friday to Sunday, Disagreement Day. Call in and we will duke it out. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment. Let me know what you guys think, and subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Till next time, guys, be amazing.
Not to live near these people. And by the way, you are a token. Hey, Jason, you're a token. You are in conservative media as a black guy that can confer upon white people the dignity of not being called.
They're lumped in with that community because we know what you mean when you say 13% of the population. You're talking about Black America. Africans, people from Ghana, people from Nigeria, they should not be considered as so-called Black American. They should be in two different categories. You know who else is considered Black in this country? Biracial people. If they have a white mom or a white dad, a Black mom or a black white mom, if they're 50% white and 50% Black, why don't they go in both communities when they commit crimes? They are also lumped into the Black community. Why? They're 50% white. They should be put into the white community as well, right? Do you know when you say the word murder, what are we talking about here, right? Let's put something into its proper perspective. What percentage of so-called the white community, innocent or guilty white people, that are being savagely attacked the way that this gentleman did, and he is absolutely evil for it, what percentage of the white community, let's just say in the last year, has been attacked by a black person and their life was ended? I'll wait. Because if Nick Fuentes was consistent, if he was truly a follower of Jesus Christ the way that he says, then Nick Fuentes would be just as outraged when it happens the other way around. Of incidents just like this or very similar to this, but it's the other way around. The person that assaulted innocent people was a white person. The victims were black people. Roll the freaking clip.
You know, I've heard a lot of people out there on YouTube and Rumble say that this was the white people's George Floyd. What a idiot.
The body scanner reveals the brutal truth about your body that your regular scale will never tell you. For weeks, my scale...
You goofy. Hold up. The IHP just dropped. Let me see what they got to say about this Charlie Kirk shit. I'm going to come back to Nick Fuentes.
Reeling after Charlie Kirk was murdered yesterday at one of his events by an assassin that clearly had to shoot like 200 yards away, one shot. All over social media, the scenes are horrific. Political violence must be condemned all the way across the board. You can disagree with somebody politically, and I disagreed with almost everything that Charlie Kirk says, and I fundamentally abhor gun violence. I abhor it. I don't think anybody should be shot and killed for having an opinion that is different from somebody else's. This has shaken us here at I've Had It to our core. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to see this. And I sometimes think when something like this happens, can we talk about gun violence? A lot of you know who have followed us for a long time. Last October, a young man that worked for us, Javier, was shot and killed on October 12th, 2024. And it was devastating. I still think about it 15 times a day. Gun violence is horrific. Yesterday, right after this story broke, there was another shooting at a school in Denver. Guns in schools in America always seems to be a problem. But much to my surprise, there seems to be a coordinated response on the right that is really terrifying. And Midas Touch compiled a lot of it here. Midas Touch tweets, deeply disturbing rhetoric is spreading from influential MAGA figures, including the president of the United States and the owner of this website. He's referring to Elon Musk there, owner of Twitter. They have no idea who the shooter is. And many of these same people mocked Democrats when they were victims of political violence in the past. In moments like this, we should be lowering the temperature and finding our shared humanity, not fueling more hatred and violence. And here's just a sampling. Libs of TikTok, caps lock, this is war. Joey Manorino, the Democrat Party must be classified as a domestic terror organization and their members, leaders treated accordingly. Enough is enough. Trump goes on blaming the radical left, Gutner Engelman. They've declared war. Another account, there's no going back after this. There's no words to be said. The only way this ends is with complete annihilation of the Democratic Party. Elon Musk, the left is the party of murder. One of the richest men in the world that owns this, saying the left is the party of murder. Sean Davis, the Democrat Party is a domestic terror organization whose most fanatics will not hesitate to murder their political opponents. This was not a one-off event. It just goes on. Another page here. Brian Eastwood, Charlie Kirk getting shot. Is the shot heard around the country? I'm ready for civil war. You want to fight, you're going to get it. When Democrats lose elections, they couldn't steal. They murder the people to defeat. This is just, this seems to be a coordinated response to this. What happened to Charlie Kirk isn't civilized, and this response is not civilized. There is any progressive, and most progressives I know, every progressive I know is for gun control, gun regulations. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s dad was shot by an assassin. And since the shootings of people, Ronald Reagan and others, people have more access to guns. And the response to this, to declare war on the left, when we had a president that campaigned about defeating the enemy from within, while all of this stuff is going on geopolitically, Russia's advancing into Poland, Israel is bombing Qatar. This is whiplash. What happened to Charlie Kirk is horrific. I have so much empathy for his wife and children. Somebody I love was shot cold-blooded, and it is a very difficult thing to move past, regardless of what people think. I believe in free speech, and I believe in a free society where people can go out without the fear of getting shot.
I completely agree. And when you look at this situation, I have the same response and the same outrage to this as I do when we see school shootings. We have a gun violence problem in America, and we need legislation and gun control to address it. Regardless of my differences with Charlie Kirk, this cannot be condoned. This is an awful act. No one should have to be murdered, period, in the United States of America, but it continues to happen because our leaders are more worried about gun lobbyist funding than they are the lives of Americans. And the way the right is attacking the left when we don't even know who did this is chilling, to say the least.
It's incredibly chilling. And here's just a little compilation of how there is no suspect identified. Nobody knows who this is and what the motivation is yet. But I just showed you a compilation of tweets where they're calling people on the left, that's you that are watching the show, that's Pumps and me, they're calling us domestic terrorists. And every single U.S. left-leaning politician, former sitting president, governors have come out and condemned this unilaterally. And here is, again, some video of the right wing's response to this. It's not to lower the temperature. This is bone chilling.
If you're a wine lover, this is the best package you could ever get. This is Medley, the wine you've probably been seeing everywhere, and it's for a good reason. This wine.
I covered that last night. They already pushing this narrative. I ain't see the Civil War claim or the pushing for Civil War. So this is already, this shit, it just don't add up. It just don't add up. It was a one shot in a crowd of people. Nobody else was injured. Nobody seen nothing. Then they come out, just got an update. They say they got a visual of them, but they not releasing the visual to the public. Like, it's a lot of crafty bullshit going on.
A war. The left has been saying put a bullseye on Trump, a bullseye on his supporters. Charlie Kirk's a casualty of war. We're in this country. We are.
They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it?
I mean, this to me, you guys, this is just absolutely a defining moment in this fight against what I believe the Trump regime is wanting to do, to silence dissenting voices. They're using this horrific tragedy, the cold-blooded murder of Charlie Kirk, to advance this fascist reign. And when authoritarians get power, everything in them is to cling on to it and to make us fight each other here and use horrific, violent language after a violent attack, murder, cold-blooded murder on Charlie Kirk is beyond the pale. And they create these imaginary things, and then they fight these imaginary wars. Nobody in the Democratic Party wants to see these people killed. We oppose with everything in us the access to guns. When I saw the video, unfortunately, of Charlie Kirk getting shot, I thought about those kids in that Sandy Hook closet, and there was one kid that survived, and what that child saw with the blood. It's all of this shocks the conscience. This is not a civil society. He was at a campus, on a school campus, and he was shot in cold blood. And to put the burden on the left for calling out what we see when you hear people talking about, even Charlie Kirk talking about stoning homosexuals, I'm always going to call that out. When I heard Charlie Kirk say that we have to have casualties to protect the Second Amendment, I disagree with that. And that's my right. And it's his right to have another position. But I fundamentally, with everything in me, do not believe that we should live in a society where an assassin can get up in a nest and shoot somebody and terrorize the American public. And I don't believe that this is responsible at all by Fox News for Jesse Waters to be using that type of aggressive language, because this is going to spawn more killings of people who have a different opinion than one another. You square it up in the voting box, you smack talk on podcasts, you smack talk on cable news. You don't take guns to kill people who disagree with you.
Very well said. I was thinking about when Trump made his statements, and I saw how Fox News, Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters specifically, were spinning this. It took me back to the insurrection on January 6th. And throughout the course of that next year, Trump kept saying, the people are mad, the people are angry after the election, before January 6th, I'm sorry, because they've been lied to. And I'm like, because they were lied to by you. You created the situation where they're angry. There was never a call, stop the violence. We have got to stop political violence. And it continues that we have a situation where we are still stoking the flames of violence so that Trump can call Democrats the enemy from within. And this is war. It does, as much empathy as I have for Charlie Kirk and his family, I did not agree with him. But the way he talked about people dying, children dying, I understand why people do not have as much empathy, but we have to vote for empathy because we are a civilized society. How he responded to Paul Pelosi's attacks, how he responded to how the whole Republican Party reacted to a Minnesota senator laying in her bed with her husband and being shot. We cannot allow this, period, no matter what side you're on, left or right. And to stoke the fires in this is irresponsible, and it is going to have consequences. Political violence has to stop, and we have an administration that is stoking it.
And then here is the sitting president of the United States. Here's his response from the Oval yesterday. Highlight.
Years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement.
All right, people that go after judges, you guys, was him. And this is just complete made up hypocrisy that the left is always doing this. There are so many examples of political violence, the majority of them coming from the right. And I condemn all of it. Charlie Kirk should be alive. He should be able to run Turning Point. He should be at home with his wife and kids. I disagree with almost everything he says, but I fundamentally support free, fair, safe elections, the town square where you can have, dissenting opinions. This is what life is about. He is far right. I'm much, much further left. I don't want these people being shot and killed. The response from a sitting president who stoked a insurrection where his supporters wanted to kill his vice president, and then him saying that he's going to come out and get each and every voice. Who is he talking about? You guys, this is chilling, because what they want to do next is erode civil rights. And I'm talking about the First Amendment. I'm talking about dissenting voices against his administration. And it is the stuff that we've seen in the comparisons of Nazi Germany with this administration have been confirmed by his own vice president, J.D. Vance, have been confirmed by Mitch McConnell. So this is an attempt. The response of this isn't leadership to call for coming together, for calling for lowering the temperature. Every other former sitting U.S. president called for that, but not this guy. And then finally, I want to leave you all with Laura Loomer. Of course, she tweets, "It's time for the Trump administration to shut down, defund, and prosecute every single leftist organization." She goes on, and Micah Efron says, "Every prominent Democrat is speaking out against this monstrous attack. Every prominent Republican is calling for Democrats to be imprisoned en masse." And that's the difference. That's the difference right there. And this is an absolute tragic thing that has happened. Political violence is horrific. Gun violence is something that I don't care who is shot, that if you live in America long enough, somebody you love will get shot. That is the fundamental problem here. I think Charlie Kirk had security. I think he even had on a bulletproof vest, and he still got shot and killed by an assassin. And I condemn it with everything in me, but I support every American's right to disagree with one another.
Hold up, I'm having a little technical issue.
An MSNBC host was just fired because he told the truth about Charlie Kirk. And I have that statement from the man who was fired. I have MSNBC's response to it. And I have a lot of right-wing commentators increasing the violence and the rhetoric around what happened with Charlie Kirk. And I just want to talk about, in this video, about the hypocrisy about what's happening here. Because the right is fanning the flames of political violence, and the left is trying to tamper it down or just talk about what got us to this point. And before I show you that clip, I want to just point out that political violence is an issue in this country, but there's only one side that is actually creating it and stoking it. Here's from Mehdi Hassan. The man who targeted and killed Democratic State Rep Melissa Hortman was a Trump supporter. The man who targeted the home of Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro was a Trump supporter. The men who wanted to hang Mike Pence on January 6th were Trump supporters. The man who was targeted and killed the son of Obama-appointed District Judge Esther Salas was a Trump supporter. The man who tried to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband was a Trump supporter. The men who convicted trying to kidnap Dem Governor Gretchen Whitmer were Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to the homes of Obama and Biden was a Trump supporter. There is no equivalent or even a similar list of Obama or Biden supporters who have carried out similar murders, attempted murders, or violent attacks. Let's keep that in mind as we go through the rest of these clips. Because here is Alex Jones on the news of Charlie Kirk. Here is Steve Bannon on the news of Charlie Kirk.
We're in a war. The left has been saying put a bullseye on Trump, a bullseye on his supporters. Charlie Kirk's a casualty of war.
They're calling it war. Here's what Jesse Waters of Fox News said.
This hits differently because Charlie was one of us. And Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy. Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. You got trans shooters. You got riots in LA. They are at war with us.
There were no riots in LA. There were no riots. There were protests in a very small, confined area in downtown Los Angeles. There were no riots. We know the person who shot Donald Trump was politically unaligned. He voted for the president. He supported the president. He was just someone who wanted to make their mark on the world, not a progressive or a Democrat.
Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves. Now, Charlie would want us to put as much pressure on these people as possible. Dana nailed it. This is unacceptable and has to stop. And it has to stop now. And everybody's accountable. And we're watching what they're saying on television and who's saying what.
Well, when you're calling it a war, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? And again, I've said this in other videos. I'm going to say again in this one. We don't fucking know who the person was. We don't know the motives. It could very well be, we don't know. I'm just going to throw out a theory. It could be someone paid by Russia to create more political violence and tension in the country. Probably not, but it could be. That theory is just as sound as any other. But to just make the broad assumption that this is a Democrat or a progressive who is trying to take out a political opponent is also just as crazy when we know nothing. This is so irresponsible to be saying to millions and millions of people.
Politicians, the media, and all these rats out there. This can never happen again. It ends now. Greg's right again. This is a turning point.
Now, TMZ actually laughed about it.
Go to have somebody look at the Fox.
Trump. Trump just posted that he's dead. Let's get it up.
Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead. All right. Janet, go to.
That's awful. Whoever was cheering or laughing, they should be fired. They should be fired. But this MSNBC host, here's what he said. This caused MSNBC to fire him.
But following up what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
Here was MSNBC's response. Statement from MSNBC President Rebecca Cutler. During our breaking news coverage of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Matthew Dowd made comments that were inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. We apologize for his statements, as has he. There is no place for violence in America, political or otherwise. Let's just listen to that one more time, can we?
But following up with what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
That's a true statement. That's a true statement. When you raise the level of the vitriol of what you're saying, it has a way of raising the temperature. And the thing is, you don't know whose temperature you're raising. Now, we don't know who did this or why, okay? But what he's saying is not untrue. We have a lot of examples of Charlie Kirk saying things that are not great. Does he deserve to drive for it? Of course not. Of course not. But does this man deserve to be fired for speaking plainly on the truth of what this type of stuff can lead to? Of course not. And then here is Nancy Mace never misses a beat to make it about her and to be the worst person alive.
I'm going to say this. Democrats own what happened today. I am devastated. My kids have called panicking. All the kids of every conservative in the country call panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
Then by that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the two Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking
We
you a
don't
serious
know what
question.
condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through his neck, and you want to talk about Republicans right now? No.
No, I'm asking
no, not
you.
at all.
You said the Democrats
this
have donated
is
to,
on.
but I'm asking,
Democrats own this.
But isn't there a problem
this.
with political violence across the spectrum?
Yeah, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%.
I wish she would have pointed out that we don't know who did this or their motives or their political affiliation. We don't know. We may never know because Cash Patel's on the case, and you let me know if you think that gives you any confidence. I'm just going to end with this. This is where it's all heading. Laura Loomer gave a long missive, but she said she's in the president's ear. The best way President Donald Trump can reinforce Charlie's legacy is by cracking down on the left and the full force of the government. Every single left-wing group that funds violent protests needs to be shut down and prosecuted. No mercy. Jail every single leftist who makes the threat of political violence. What she's saying here is jail anyone who disagrees with the president and who uses their First Amendment rights to speak against this administration. And I think that's where this is all heading, personally. So, anyways, we're going to keep following this. We aren't going to be afraid to say the truth on this channel. So if you want to keep supporting the truth, please do hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Jeff Epstein.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, with respect, if there was some news about Jeff Epstein, I would have heard.
But let's just pause for a moment here and allow today's sponsor, Ground News, to help us understand how Jeffrey Epstein, Jimmy Kimmel, and my mortal enemy as a Cowboys fan, Aaron Rodgers, all wound up in the same sentence recently. See, the Ground News app and website gather related news articles from around the world and provide context about the source of the information for a more accurate understanding of current events. So when Aaron Rodgers suggested Jimmy Kimmel was associated with Epstein on Pat McAfee biographies show, you can imagine how the internet responded. But with Ground News, I can see that out of 150 articles, the majority of the coverage has come from either left or center-leaning publications. I can see all the ways the media chose to frame the controversy. Scripts highlighting Jimmy's response, setting the record straight that he's never been in contact with Epstein, while Breitbart's preview mentioned how upset Aaron got for the way the media, including ESPN, tried to cancel him instead of focusing on the real criminal. But The Hill showed me a quote from Aaron saying he understands why Jimmy got so upset he threatened to sue, but he's also not stupid enough to seriously make a claim like that with zero evidence. Seeing these different angles on the same story in one place with clear markers highlighting a source's political leaning, reliability, and ownership, so I'm aware of any bias that could be affecting its reporting, is one of the most interesting features of Ground News. I feel like I can truly trust my perception of the world because I'm not getting my news from just one potentially biased source. So check it out for yourself by going to ground.news/Jobbery right now. You can even get 30% off the Vantage plan if you subscribe through my link, which is what I use, or try it for less than $1 this month. Huge thanks again to the wonderful people at Ground News for sponsoring this video and helping us all see through misinformation and media bias.
So lots of people doing lots of hard work, and hard work didn't translate into success either. It wasn't what you knew or how hard you worked. And what I learned in jail later is that lots of it in fact turns out to be not necessarily who you knew, but who you came in contact with.
One of the most robust biographies of Jeffrey Epstein we have was written by his own legal defense team following his initial indictment in Palm Beach, handed over to state prosecutors in 2007 by one of Epstein's lawyers, who also made sure to attach a smug, handwritten note that read, "Enjoy some fun reading on your defendant." Obtained in 2019 by the Palm Beach Post, the generous wording of this thing should be entirely expected. I mean, it was written by his defense team after all. It glowingly recounts all the times Epstein lent a helping hand to the people around him, and includes testimonies of former girlfriends Eva Anderson and Ghislaine Maxwell. Being sure to mention that the reason Epstein has shied away from becoming a parent is because the demands of his business would not allow him the kind of time and presence needed to be a good parent. I'm sure that's what it is. To back up a little here, it also notes that Epstein was born in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York in January 1953. Jeffrey and his younger brother Mark were raised in a middle-class environment by their two parents, Pauline, a school aide, and Seymour, a groundskeeper for the city of New York. It's always mentioned that he liked to play the piano and that he did so well academically that he was able to graduate Lafayette High School 2 years early when he was just 16, before going on to study math and physics at the Cooper Union for a few years. Epstein never graduated, but he did transfer to NYU, where he would also not graduate. So the natural question becomes, how did a two-time college dropout get a job at teaching math at the prestigious Dalton School the same year he left NYU behind? After all, the Dalton schools produced a number of notable alumni, including Chevy Chase, Anderson Cooper, Sean Ono Lennon, and specifically while Epstein was there, Prudence Murdoch, daughter of Fox News founder Rupert Murdoch, and actress Jennifer Grey, according to NPR. The New York Times reports that the school's headmaster at the time Epstein was hired was Donald Barr, who, fun fact, is the father of William Barr, the U.S. Attorney General under Trump, who you may know for being in charge of the DOJ when Epstein died in custody decades later, which is just one of the many strange tidbits we'll see throughout this story, like the fact that Donald Barr once wrote a book called Space Relations, about a planet ruled by oligarchs who engage in child sex slavery. So I'm glad that's something I know, and now so do you. As former Dalton social studies teacher Susan Semel told The Times, Barr was explicitly looking to hire teachers with less conventional backgrounds in the field. And while Epstein was about as unconventional as it got, he was barely 21 years old, had no experience in the world of education. I mean, he's a two-time dropout and would show up to school wearing fur coats and gold chains that would dangle in front of his grossly exposed hairy chest. I'm sorry for the mental image, but I think it's worth illustrating here in detail. His tenure at Dalton, though, wouldn't last long, according to the interim headmaster, who alluded to Epstein's lack of effectiveness. If you ask his students what they thought about the eccentric instructor, the consensus seems to vary. Some described him as caring and attentive, while others recall a clear inappropriateness about the way he conducted himself. It's also been reported that he'd attend student parties where underage drinking would occur, to the point that it would become widely talked about among the school. Epstein's bizarre behavior even made it all the way up to the headmaster that replaced Barr, Gardner Dunnan, whose attorney has since told the Times he denies being aware of any concerns of Epstein's conduct. It's also worth noting that Dunham himself was later accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old. Epstein may have been out at Dalton, but he sure wasn't down on his luck, struggling to find his next gig either. Ever since the beginning, one of his few talents may have been his ability to suck up to the gaggle of powerful people in his vicinity. Robert Couturier, an interior designer who knew Epstein during the 80s, told Vanity Fair Epstein was a flatterer, with a woman named Leon Koppel telling the Miami Herald to give Jeff credit. He knew how to woo people, how to schmooze, and she would know her father Ace Greenberg is the one who gave Epstein a job at Bear Stearns, a now failed investment bank on Wall Street. Greenberg, Bear Stearns chairman who was reportedly introduced to Epstein through Dalton, was clearly fascinated in the young teacher, and saw great potential for him in the economic world despite his lack of experience in, well, anything that wasn't sniffing the farts of the most powerful people in the room. Something I find odd is that Epstein miraculously kept finding himself in these highly desirable job positions when he was less than qualified to fulfill them. He was a lackluster candidate at best, yet he was still, for some reason, being paid by billionaires like Leon Black fairly well, better than most money managers would have been getting paid, in fact, begging the question, what exactly made Epstein so uniquely appealing to these people? I mean, they could have hired anyone in the world to do a better job for a way lower rate. It doesn't make sense. But Black and Greenberg weren't the only fans of the underqualified 20-something. Even the future CEO of Bear Stearns, James Kane, was happy to take Epstein under his wing during his time at the firm, as Time magazine reported that Epstein worked his way up from a lowly junior assistant to a floor trader before becoming a limited partner in 1980. The same year, Cosmopolitan crowned him Bachelor of the Month, with this little magazine snippet that claimed the 27-year-old talks only to people who make over $1 million a year. If you're a cute Texas girl, write this New York dynamo at 55 Water Street. All I can hope now is that no Texas girl actually did that. He left the next year to start his own thing, but continued trading with Bear Stearns until their collapse in 2008. Around the time Epstein was experiencing somewhat of a collapse of his own, but don't worry, he'd still have plenty of ways to move massive hordes of money around all the way up until his death. But let's just put all of that to the side for a second to first talk about one of Epstein's more lucrative connections he made up until this point. A peculiar little character by the name of Les Wexner, whose real-time net worth hovers around a humble $6 billion, is the 86-year-old founder of a global retailing empire. Launching the clothing company The Limited all the way back in 1963, Wexner went on to make a series of business acquisitions that allowed his influence to expand exponentially over the following decades. He acquired Victoria's Secret in 1982, Abercrombie & Fitch in 1988, Bath & Body Works in 1990, and by 2003, Fortune magazine considered Limited Brands the most admired specialty retailer in the world. And at that point in time, Wexner's financial manager was none other than Jeffrey Epstein.
His ties to Columbus native Wexner have been brought into the national spotlight.
The genesis of Epstein and Wexner's decades-long close friendship is somewhat of a debate due in part to how murky Epstein's life became after leaving Bear Stearns, but also thanks to Epstein's conflicting answers as to which year the two buddies officially met. First bragging about the investment advice he gave to Wexner in 1986, only to seemingly backtrack and say he didn't begin advising him until 1989, actually. Regardless, Wexner didn't shy away from describing to Vanity Fair just how close the two were, calling Epstein very smart with a combination of excellent judgment and unusually high standards. Whatever that means. But then again, this was his, quote, most loyal friend, at least in 2003. And I know you may be wondering, hey, this was years before Jeffrey Epstein got publicly exposed as a serial sex trafficker, so is it really that fair to criticize the guy if he didn't know Epstein was bad until at least 2008? And I might agree with that, if Wexner hadn't been so personally involved with the man to the point where Epstein reportedly told a friend that Wexner knows everything about me. He knows every experience I've had. With Vanity Fair also noting that Wexner was warned hundreds of times by Robert Meister, who originally introduced the two men, to drop Epstein after learning about his sexual proclivities before 2008. But it wasn't just Meister sounding the alarm bells. Harold Levin and Jerry Merritt, who both worked for Wexner, told Vanity Fair they too warned their boss of Epstein's shadiness. Yet despite it all, to this day, Wexner denies knowing anything about his former best friend's criminal behavior, telling employees he was never aware of the illegal activity and would never have guessed that a person I employed more than a decade ago could have caused such pain to so many people, even though he would have known exactly that. In fact, I find it basically impossible for Wexner to not know that his, quote, most loyal friend had been going around and lying to women about his relationship with Victoria's Secret by falsely labeling himself a modeling recruiter, according to one police report, which also included the claim that Epstein had groped model Alicia Arden in 1997. And that's not to mention when a year prior, an artist named Maria Farmer reached out to authorities claiming Epstein had assaulted her while working on Wexner's Ohio property. She filed a police report, but somehow Wexner never caught wind of any of that, I guess, and didn't cut ties until 18 months after charges were brought against Epstein in Palm Beach. In fact, Epstein not only remained Wexner's power of attorney for almost 2 decades, he also served as a trustee on the board of the Wexner Foundation, oversaw the construction of his super yacht, and even drafted a prenup for Wexner and his wife. And if that wasn't enough, Wexner would reportedly sell Epstein a Boeing 727 for $10 million in 2000, and also allow Epstein to take possession of his multi-million-dollar Upper East Side mansion for the low price of free, which is a long way of saying that there's a special place in the afterlife for Mr. Wexner. While we're on the subject, one of the greatest mysteries surrounding Jeffrey Epstein to this day is where he acquired the massive fortune he used to bankroll his decades of international criminal activity. He's usually referred to in the news as a billionaire, but we really don't know how much money he exactly had at his peak. Prosecutors in 2019 estimated he had a net worth of at least $500 million, but the fact that we have no definitive explanation for where any of that really came from should infuriate everyone watching this. Now, Wexner is commonly speculated to at least be in part responsible for the digits in Epstein's bank account. After all, he did claim Epstein misappropriated vast sums of money from him and his family only after his, quote, most loyal friend's arrest, of course. But even if Epstein ripped off one of Wexner's charities for a quick and easy $46 million, that would barely account for the rest of his gargantuan wealth. So naturally, people are kind of forced to just guess. Some of the current acting theories have to do with blackmail, which we will explore in part 2, money laundering, and his possible connection to one of the largest Ponzi schemes in American history. There's a little gap in the resume we've discussed so far. After working for Bear Stearns and before becoming Les Wexner's appointed hatchet man, Epstein began his own consulting firm, working as a bounty hunter in his own words to help clients recover stolen money, which further brought him into contact with some very rich individuals, claiming he wouldn't do business with anyone not a billionaire, even brushing elbows with members of international governments, as Vanity Fair wrote in that 2003 article. Maybe this is why law enforcement discovered a mysterious passport after a raid on his home in 2019, which exhibited Epstein's image next to a fake name and a noted place of residence in Saudi Arabia. I promise we'll get to the Ponzi scheme thing in a second. Okay, we're almost there. His lawyers at the time said he needed this fake ID for protection as a Jewish person traveling regularly to the Middle East. Why was he going to the Middle East, you ask? Well, one of Epstein's clients at this time was identified by journalist Vicky Ward as Adnan Khashoggi, who, among other things, was a middleman in the Iran-Contra scandal who who helped smuggle cash for the Marcos family out of the Philippines. During his travels overseas is where Epstein was reportedly introduced by alleged arms dealer Douglas Leese, known for his involvement in a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal between Saudi Arabia and the United Kingdom, to American businessman and future convicted fraudster Stephen Hoffenberg. Hoffenberg, over the next several decades, would spend 18 years behind bars for his involvement in a $475 million financial scheme that he now says Epstein masterminded. Okay, see, I told you we'd get to the Ponzi scheme thing eventually. It just took a minute, but thanks for sticking by. Hoffenberg told NPR in 2019 that he considered Epstein to be brilliant, extraordinarily gifted and talented in convincing people to buy from him. And also he was a criminal mastermind, by the way. The criminal enterprise that Hoffenberg is describing rather openly here went by the pretty uncreative name of Towers Financial. Hoffenberg and his self-described best friend Epstein, who worked as a paid consultant through the 80s and 90s, ran a team of people on Wall Street, investment people that raised these $1 billion illegally, as Hoffenberg told CBS News, feeling the need to emphasize he was my guy, my wingman, which is personally not a term I would use to describe Jeffrey Epstein in any circumstance, but over the course of 5 years, prosecutors allege the company raised 9 figures, almost $500 million of investors' money by selling them fake bonds. They'd then use the money to repay earlier investors while pocketing the difference. A classic Ponzi that you may be shocked to hear lasted as long as it did, but keep in mind, this was a pre-Bernie Madoff era, so a financial fraud of this scale was almost unheard of in the early 90s. The strangest part of it all, however, is that despite multiple parties being so able to recall Epstein as a prominent component of the Ponzi scheme, Epstein himself was never charged alongside his buddy Stephen Hoffenberg, who pled guilty to 5 criminal charges in 1995. As Terrence Corrigan, a lawyer representing over 2,800 people defrauded by Towers, told CBS, as I understood, Epstein was sort of a senior VP. If he was not the number 2 guy, he was certainly the number 2 or number 3 person at the firm. I know we saw organization charts, and yes, Epstein's name was on them, with another attorney, one representing Towers Financial, reinforcing Corrigan's memory. Epstein was a consultant at Towers Financial. I met him there and I drafted a consulting agreement as I was an attorney at the company. I remember him. Epstein was even mentioned in a lawsuit against the company filed by the Illinois Department of Insurance, who, now you're probably wondering, why was Illinois involved? Well, they claimed Towers had carried out an illegal transfer that violated Illinois law. As you can see here, Epstein's name appears in their documents multiple times, yet for whatever reason, Epstein never once appeared as a defendant in the 1993 federal case against Hoffenberg. Although Hoffenberg's testimony to the grand jury included mention of Epstein being the mastermind behind the whole thing, as reported by Julie K. Brown, Epstein was nonetheless dropped from the case for reasons that are still unknown today. While Hoffenberg was awaiting a jail sentence, Epstein was busy frolicking around the White House and schmoozing power brokers at dinners and events like the White House Historical Association fundraiser in 1993, which included such beautiful guests as Clark Clifford, a man responsible for establishing BCCI in the United States. BCCI, which we definitely don't have enough time to dive into here, was an international bank used to transfer dark money between international governments later found to be involved in a litany of shady activity, ranging from money laundering to illegal weapons sales to human trafficking. Clifford himself had charges brought against him that would be dropped not because prosecutors thought he was innocent all of a sudden, but because of Clifford's poor health the same year that he attended this fundraiser with Epstein. Frankly, the idea that a man accused of helping to facilitate one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in American history could avoid prosecution and immediately pal around with some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the country at an exclusive White House fundraiser is enough to turn anyone into a conspiracy theorist. Other than that 2003 Vanity Fair puff piece and a glowing profile in New York Magazine that we will get to in a bit, Epstein had lived much of his life in the shadows since the early 80s, making it all the more tricky for investigators and journalists to track his elusive movements. A lot of the insight we now know is thanks to Miami Herald journalist Julie K. Brown, who presents an extremely comprehensive timeline of events in her excellent book, Perversion of Justice, which I read in preparation for this video and would recommend to anyone looking to learn more about the Epstein story. Brown, who has covered the story extensively for years now, writes that the earliest instances of Epstein's sex crimes against minors date back to the mid-90s, when, at a Michigan summer camp in 1994, he and his then girlfriend Ghislaine approached a 13-year-old child. According to the Daily Mail article Brown cites here, the anonymous girl's mother says she looked even younger than she was. Then, years later, when Ghislaine's trial was underway in 2021, one of the lawyers representing the now convicted trafficker wrote this young victim's story off as the result of her own conduct, and that the girl had voluntarily or negligently assumed a known risk, consenting to the abuse. A 13-year-old. That is what lawyers representing Epstein and Ghislaine have consistently thought of the hundreds of girls who were systematically trafficked throughout their childhood. So just keep that in mind as we move forward here and discuss Epstein's track record of abuse across the United States. Some of it taking place in New York, some at his New Mexico baby farm, as he called it, and of course a lot of it occurring at the Palm Beach mansion he bought in 1990. To understand Epstein's years-long pattern of abuse, we have to establish the location of this 14,000 square foot monstrosity. Unfortunately, the neighborhood that housed Epstein's $44 million oceanfront property was only a short drive away from a much less privileged area of Palm Beach, Florida. Testimony from even more victims prove he explicitly sought out girls from broken families, girls who were either homeless or on the verge of homelessness, those who came from tragic backgrounds wrought by addiction, suicide, and abuse already, girls who lived in trailer homes and were in and out of foster homes, girls who Epstein knew would not be taken seriously by the legal system. A prediction that his infamous plea agreement years later would ultimately prove right. And just a fair warning, a lot of this video from here on out will be discussing what victims experienced at the hands of Epstein and his associates, so if that's something you're unable to listen to, I completely understand, and just wanted to make it very clear before we get into any of the details. Throughout the mid-90s to the early noughts, Epstein would employ several tactics to prey on girls who primarily attended Palm Beach Gardens High School, Lake Worth Middle School, and Royal Palm Beach High, which the Palm Beach Post named Ground Zero in Epstein's operation. One of those girls was Michelle Licata, who was just 16 years old when she was approached by a friend at school in the days leading up to Christmas, 2004. Michelle, who recalled to ABC working at a supermarket and being strapped for cash at the time, was looking to earn some money in order to buy her family gifts for the holidays. According to her friend, all Michelle needed to do was massage an old guy and she'd get $200. This made Michelle curious, and because she was led to believe the massage would take place in a professional environment similar to the spas she had seen in the past, she obliged. It was only on the drive there that Michelle realized they weren't going to a professional facility. They were going to a house. And after finally arriving outside a sprawling mansion in a neighborhood she had never seen before, her friend hastily remarked that the man who lived inside might ask her to undress during the massage. Before she knew it, Michelle was whisked inside and led upstairs by several other women she had never met to a cold, dark bathroom where she was forced to encounter Jeffrey Epstein, lying face down on the massage table talking on the phone. In that moment, Michelle was lost, confused, and left all alone with a man old enough to be her father. She then goes on to recount how Epstein molested her, noting that his face was enough to terrify her for the rest of her life. After the incident was over, Epstein paid her $200 and asked her to deliver another $100 bill to the friend who had brought her there. She got back in the car and told her friend what had happened, to which the friend responded, "Oh, that's okay. He tried to do that with my other friend too," as Michelle told Brown. Interestingly though, as Michelle told ABC, there were in fact other adults present at the estate. Gardeners, butlers, housekeepers, etc. It's just that they did nothing, as if they were used to seeing such girls come and go all the time. And as everyone knows now, that was the case. He did this frequently.
When Palm Beach police began interviewing teenagers in 2005, they were astonished at what dozens told them about Jeffrey Epstein.
Every girl that meets Jeffrey starts off with giving him a massage. The more you do with him, the more you make. Basically, if you take off your clothes, you're gonna make more. If you let him do things to you, you're gonna make more. I did it naked, but I wouldn't let him touch me or anything like that. So after that, he's like, you know what? He's like, listen, I'll pay you $200 for every girl that you bring to me.
She's like, oh, you know, do you need to make any extra money? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, I can give you, you know, like $200. It's this older guy in Palm Beach. He gets a lot of massages from girls. You know, that was really, that's all she told me. He asked me to take my shirt off, so I took my shirt off. And that's how that was it.
Did you ever take your panties off and be completely nude?
Every now and then, yeah.
It's like a train. It's like, I introduce them to all my friends, she'll bring her friends, and then will bring her friends. It goes on and on.
Having underage girls come to his house to abuse was like a constant need for him, which unfortunately drastically impacted the trajectory of these young girls' lives. One victim by the name of Carolyn, who was abused by Epstein starting in 2001, testified in court that she had become addicted to pain pills and cocaine in an effort to block out the abuse she endured at 14 years old. She claimed to have visited Epstein upwards of 100 times growing up, and that she was at his Palm Beach residence multiple times a week for years. Carolyn tragically passed away of a fentanyl and methadone overdose in October 2023. Although police were able to identify a little over 30 victims in 2015, Julie K. Brown later discovered through her own research around 80 girls abused by Epstein just in Palm Beach alone. And those are only the ones we know about. Considering the wealth and the powerful connections Epstein would use as leverage over his young victims, it's no surprise that these girls were reluctant to speak with anyone about what had happened to them. Some, like Michelle, didn't even tell her parents until the police came knocking at her door a year later. Even now, there are victims who understandably don't want their identities out there. One anonymous woman in particular outlined these feelings to ABC in 2019. I almost felt scared to talk. Like, was I going to get in trouble? Did I do something wrong that I could be arrested? I was young. I had blamed myself for all these years. I was definitely scared to talk. But that's not to say some girls hadn't been talking from the beginning.
Farmer says she reported the assault to the FBI, but she told us it wasn't for another decade, just before Epstein's first arrest in 2006, that an agent finally appeared at her door.
Remember Maria Farmer, who I mentioned earlier, how she told police that Epstein assaulted her in Ohio? Well, unfortunately, that wasn't a lone incident. That same year, her 16-year-old sister, Annie Farmer, was also abused by Epstein and his then-girlfriend Ghislaine at their New Mexico ranch, with Annie writing in her diary at the time of how weird it was that Epstein had rubbed her hand and lower leg at a movie theater, before later being instructed by Ghislaine Maxwell to give Epstein a foot massage, with Ghislaine later touching the 16-year-old inappropriately in front of Epstein. Epstein also got into bed with Annie at one point during the trip. Maria's experience in Ohio was similar, with the couple essentially trapping her in the house and groping her in unison, mirroring each other's movements, as the New York Times put it. Maria claimed in an affidavit that Les Wexner's security staff essentially kept her there against her wishes for 12 hours after the assault took place. It was at this point that Maria and Annie realized what had happened to one another and tried to take action. Both sisters reported their experiences first to police, then to FBI, who did nothing, prompting the sisters to instead speak with Vanity Fair journalist Vicky Ward on the record in 2002. Being tasked with writing the now infamous profile The Talented Mr. Epstein for the magazine, you would think that Ward would obviously publish the allegations and expose Epstein and Ghislaine once and for all. Only somehow that didn't happen. Sure, the article did briefly reference Epstein's affinity for, quote, mostly young girls, among a sea of other breathtaking quotes used to humanize the man, such as, quote, Epstein is charming, and, quote, many people comment there is something innocent, almost childlike about Jeffrey Epstein. Making sure to hammer home the generous $25 million donation he had just made to Harvard for the creation of a mathematical biology and evolutionary dynamics program in Epstein's name. The article made zero mention of the allegations Ward had been told by the Farmer sisters. Since the release of this article, the blame for this little blunder has been pointed at numerous parties. Ward blames Vanity Fair's then editor-in-chief, Graydon Carter, for succumbing to Epstein's intimidation tactics and not including the allegations out of a combined lack of sympathy for the victims and that he actually believed Epstein's story over theirs. While Carter has referred to Ward as a serial liar, Isaac Chotiner offered an extensive analysis of the claims claims made on both sides in his article last year for The New Yorker. I would highly recommend checking it out in full, along with Ward's 2 responses, to get the full story of what happened. But it ultimately boils down to a massive he said, she said. It's true that Carter does have a reputation of repressing stories in the past, and seems pretty biased toward Epstein, according to transcripts released by Ward, but it should also be noted that Ward herself went on to write 2 more controversial pieces on Epstein. One in 2011 that praises Ghislaine pretty heavily, and another in 2008 where she describes Epstein as, quote, perfectly charming, as he has been to me for years now, telling him over the phone, well, I guess you and I have a history by now, huh, Jeffrey? To which he responded, you know how many girls say that to me? In fact, Maria Farmer herself alleges it was Vicky Ward who ratted to Ghislaine about the sisters going to the FBI.
Before all that, I was already in hiding because of Vanity Fair. Vicky Ward is, I'm going to tell you right now, she's a monster. She's a true monster. She's not a hero. We had to send a cease and desist letter because she's harassed my family for so long to try to save her face, because she told Ghislaine Maxwell over drinks that I reported them to the FBI. Can you believe that?
Holy shit.
And so,
oh, sorry,
this was in 2002.
But wow.
In 2000, no, please, I cursed my head off. She, for a year, promised us our safety. For a whole year. And see, I didn't meet with Graydon. I met with Vicky. And so Vicky's the one that's responsible here, because she was the person who promised us our safety, and she promised
Epstein victim Virginia Jeffrey, years before the sex trafficker was ever arrested on federal charges. On a hot mic, Amy can be seen here telling her off-screen producers during a commercial break that she had the story 3 years ago, and that the network offered a myriad of excuses as to why they wouldn't air Virginia's story back in 2015.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
A big factor here seemed to be Queen Elizabeth's son, Prince Andrew, whose name you likely associate with Jeffrey Epstein already. It's true the two have been photographed together on numerous occasions. He did say in a hugely infamous interview after Epstein's final arrest that he weirdly did not regret his friendship with the sex trafficker, which is an insane thing to say, before stepping back from his royal duties in the wake of some pretty understandable outrage. Amy, though, says that it was partly the royal family who applied pressure on the news outlet after learning what Virginia's allegations were. As subsequent court documents reveal, Virginia stated both that Epstein and Ghislaine began trafficking her in 2000 when she was still a teenager, and that she was instructed by the pair to have sex with Andrew on 3 separate occasions in New York, London, and on Little St. James Island in 2001, claiming she was paid $15,000 in at least one of these instances. Somehow, as Business Insider recently reported, this allegation was not considered pertinent by the judge in this defamation case Virginia had brought against Epstein and Ghislaine, Despite this, widely circulated photos showing a 17-year-old Virginia standing next to Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell just hours before one of the assaults, according to Virginia. But because ABC chose not to air any of this in 2015, these claims were not made public until 2019, to which Buckingham Palace immediately denied just before Prince Andrew made probably one of the biggest PR mistakes I've ever seen in my entire life. This utterly painful interview that has gone on to haunt Prince Andrew ever since was conducted by the BBC in November 2019, advised against by his communications secretary Jason Stein, who notably quit his job immediately after this thing aired, which says enough right there. If anyone was on the fence about Andrew's guilt going into this thing, they certainly weren't anymore.
Actually, it's a very good opportunity, and I'm delighted to be able to see you today.
Oh man, I'm sure you are.
As you say, all of this goes back to your friendship with Jeffrey Epstein.
It would be a considerable stretch to say that he was a very, very close friend.
About 6 minutes in, we learned that despite visiting Epstein's Palm Beach mansion, flying on the Lolita Express, staying at his New York estate, and taking a trip to his private island, Andrew, who was serving on Britain's Full Stop campaign, aimed to stamp out child sex trafficking, ironically, has never once seen any indication of what the financier was really up to. But things only start to get worse when the interviewer asks about Epstein's 2006 indictment, which is also the same year that Andrew invited Epstein out to his daughter's 18th birthday party across the pond. But even if Andrew was somehow not aware of any investigation by the time he sent that invitation, if he were truly innocent like he claims, he would have officially cut all communication in 2006, you'd think, right? I mean, after the indictment, he's no more talking to the pedophile, right? And that's something he says he maintained until 2010. Keyword there, until 2010.
Well, I ceased contact with him after I was aware that he was under investigation, and that was later on in 2006. And I wasn't in touch with him again until 2010. So I just.
This is why I don't understand the point of this interview. You are admitting to millions.
See, that's why it don't make no sense to me. I'm sitting back and I'm listening.
Years after you say you cut him
I'm up at the
off.
park. I'm walking back from the park right now. I'm up here listening. This don't make sense to me. There's too many red flags. When a black person with all these red flags, he wouldn't have made it this far. Fair to say.
I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together.
Well, that plan really worked out, huh? You were literally photographed with him on that trip.
I felt that doing it over the telephone was the chicken's way of doing it. I had to go and see him and talk to him.
Yeah, man, we wouldn't want to disrespect the convicted pedophile, would we?
And we had an opportunity to go for a walk in the park, and that was the conversation, coincidentally, that was photographed, which was when I said to him, I said, look, because of what has happened, I don't think it is appropriate that we should remain in contact.
Prince Andrew thinks you are stupid enough to believe that someone just happened to snap a picture of him during the exact moment he was telling Epstein, hey man, you're a pedophile, we can't hang out anymore. Now, does anyone on the face of the earth believe that? You let him throw you a party with all those guests I mentioned earlier.
We decided that we would part company, and I left, I think it was the next day.
Yeah, just had to get one more night in at the pedo palace, huh?
He didn't go into any great depth in the conversation about what I was doing, or what he was doing.
Very, very unfortunate Freudian slip there.
Who advised you then that it was a good idea to go and break up the friendship? Did that come from the palace? Was Her Majesty the Queen involved?
No.
You can tell he's extremely careful in this interview not to implicate the rest of his, well, slightly important family. Almost like he knows he massively messed up and probably did some heinous things behind closed doors, which again begs the question, why did he agree to this interview? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it. I wish everyone involved with Epstein did an interview like this. I keep going, Andrew, this is great.
He threw a party to celebrate his release, and you were invited as the guest of honor.
Oh, it was a small dinner party. There were only 8 or 10 of us, I think, at the dinner. If there was a party, then I'd know nothing about that.
You were invited to that dinner as a guest of honor.
Well, I was there, so there was a dinner. I don't think it was quite as you might put it, but yeah, okay, I was there at a dinner, yeah.
Okay, let's say it was a dinner, okay? You moron. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people came. You were still having a ball, yucking it up with your friends, the sex traffickers.
You said you went to break up the relationship, and yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long.
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there.
But you were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
Oh man, I love how he just gives up at a certain point. Like, you knew she was gonna ask these questions. Why are you shocked that you're having to answer for your behavior? I mean, he is only a little entitled, I guess. The guy did grow up in a literal castle.
At the time, I felt it was the honourable and right thing to do. My judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
You heard it here first, everybody. The honourable thing to do is meet with a guy you know is a pedophile in person to tell him you can't be friends anymore over the course of a 4-day dinner party extravaganza. I mean, I just can't wrap my mind around this.
So why wouldn't you announce this breakup when you got back? Why wouldn't you publicly explain what you'd done?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer is because he's lying. He didn't take that trip to break up with him or whatever. That's an excuse he came up with from the looks of it 30 minutes before this interview, but you know, that's just my guess.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat.
Oh, come on, gang.
And that was, actually, yes. I didn't sweat at the time, and it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to
you sweating.
do that again. So I'm afraid to say
that
there's a medical condition.
You sweating, fam. You sweating right now.
Very shameless.
You sweating right now, fam.
Sweating habits. Andrew goes on to rattle off a detailed alibi for himself on the specific evening that Virginia says the assault took place. And that's before he goes on to say that, well, he might have met Virginia. And yes, in fact, he has seen the photograph of the two of them together, but strangely, he's unable to offer a convenient excuse for why such a photo exists. Other than, hey, maybe it's fake, right? And mind you, this was before the days of Midjourney and Dolly, so if there's anyone out there who genuinely thinks this is the result of some master Photoshop work, I'd love to meet them, shake their hand, and ask them to get their eyes checked.
You think it is you next to her in the photo?
Oh, it's definitely me. I mean, that's a picture of me. It's not a picture of, I don't believe it's a picture of me in London, because when I go out in London, I wear a suit and a tie.
Oh yeah, here's a photo of him in London without a suit and tie, by the way. He even looks like he's sweating a bit. If the first half of this interview was bad, the second half is almost unwatchable. He's stuttering all over the place, desperately in search for the right excuses, while knowing deep down there's no way he could sell this thing. He's struggling to remember even the most basic details of the defense his team no doubt coached him to say.
When was your last contact with her?
It was earlier this year, funny enough, in the summer.
So even though he had by then been arrested and was facing charges of sex trafficking?
No. This was early spring, I think. It was long, because when was he arrested?
July.
No, it was before July.
And that was the last time?
Yeah. Because
did you discuss Epstein at all then?
No, actually, funnily enough, no, not at all.
It's just an awesome way to end it. So when did you see Ghislaine? This summer, after Epstein got caught? Oh, when was that? July? Oh yeah, that was way before that. Long time before that, I can promise you. Now, I'm sure you already knew, at the very least, that this interview existed. I mean, it's one of the most infamous pieces of television as far as I'm concerned. But what you may not know is that in response to Andrew's claims, Virginia spoke out in her own interview with the BBC the following month. In it, she recalls in vivid detail the traumatizing encounter with the prince, and that all she could remember at the time was that she had just been abused by a member of the royal family. These powerful people were my chains, adding, he knows what happened, I know what happened. There's only one of us telling the truth, and I know it's me. Over the following years, Virginia would file a lawsuit against Andrew specifically, accusing the prince of sexual assault, leading Andrew to hire the same lawyer who went on to work with none other than Colleen Bollinger just last year. But by February 2022, 1992, Andrew was forced to pay Virginia an out-of-court settlement, possibly, reportedly, financed in part by the Queen of England herself, who is also said to have contributed millions to her son's civil suit against Virginia, according to the Daily Telegraph. But Virginia's story doesn't end with Prince Andrew. In fact, an entire handful of Epstein's buddies were also implicated in the deposition released in 2019, along with a 139-page memoir written by Virginia, linked in the description below in full. If you take the time to read through all of it, you'll be presented with a first-person account of life inside Epstein's trafficking ring, and how she was first approached by Ghislaine Maxwell as a teenager, assisting her dad over the summer at Mar-a-Lago. With her hopes set on one day becoming a massage therapist, Virginia worked near the spa and would often read books on anatomy when business was slow. Virginia describes her first encounter with Ghislaine as follows. A lovely-looking woman in her late 30s who spoke with a proper English accent approached me. I assumed it was a general question like, where's the ladies' room, and was that a fancy model from so-and-so? But she was more interested in the book I was reading. Only believing at first that we were just making small talk, she was really intrigued by my choice of reading. She then asked if I do massages on the side, and I stated I was only reading the book and had not yet begun to study, but one day I would love to practice massage therapy. It wasn't long after that Ghislaine would mention this rich guy who happened to be looking for a massage therapist. Turning her down at first on account of her own inexperience in the field, Virginia eventually ended up accepting Ghislaine's contact information and couldn't wait to tell her dad the good news. We both thought this could be a wonderful opportunity to get my accreditation in massage therapy, she wrote. Seeing that it was a lady in her late 30s who came off as more of a nurturer rather than a procurer, neither of us saw any reason to be hesitant, which I think perfectly encapsulates the way Epstein and Ghislaine would weaponize these girls' personal aspirations against them. They knew exactly how to manipulate the desires and interests of their victims to extract what they wanted. What started off as this exciting chance to pursue her dreams turned into one of the darkest periods in Virginia's life.
But it was supposed to be, a massage therapy, and I thought, wow, that might be a good job to learn. And when I met him, he was just in jeans in front of his mansion and just seemed like a regular guy. I had no idea what was going on.
Virginia describes in vivid detail her first encounter with Epstein, along with her second, her third, her fourth, and so on. Before long, Virginia realized she had become one of Epstein's favorite, quote, new little toys, as she put it in her memoir, and went on to accompany him on frequent excursions all across the world. It was during her 2 years of being trafficked that Virginia claims she was forced to have sex not only with Epstein and Prince Andrew, which on one occasion involved the prince using a puppet look-alike of himself to grope another victim while he touched Virginia with his other hand, but also named a slew of other powerful clients. The list included a Harvard professor named Stephen, another prince whose name she couldn't recall, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, and an owner of a hotel chain who she described as a short, balding man with straggling remnants of curly brown hair. This owner, she claims, offered to pay her triple to work for him instead of Epstein. It's important to note here that Virginia was also being given high doses of Xanax during these years, unfortunately obscuring her recollection of certain specific names. One person she did mention by name, though, was former Senate Majority Leader and Disney Chairman George Mitchell, who obviously denies the claims, though according to Virginia's memoirs, as well
So I find that super interesting. Let me make sure my microphone even working. So I find that super interesting. Right. I find that super interesting. Hang on, sorry. So I find it super interesting that not only is he tied in, got all of these, I don't even know what to call it, but he got all of these different ties. He clearly been in this, damn, I can't even get my thoughts together. It's so hot outside. So he clearly has connections. They got Prince Andrew in an interview, sweating profusely, talking about he got a condition where he couldn't sweat. Like, clearly it's been some shit going on nefariously behind the scenes. Played a documentary last night where they had a lady where the lady, she was a talent agent, or she was a manager for some models, And she was basically getting called to the carpet because she knew that the modeling agency that she was sending the girls to work for, they had accusations. Girls was coming back telling her that you had to have sex with the guy to get a job. So this is what goes on in these little situations. Hold on, my phone went down. Let me grab my other device. Play more of this documentary real quick.
As well as her sworn deposition, Mitchell was just one of many recognizable figures of the high society that became for a lot more than just a client of massage. It's important to note here that most victims have testified that massage to Epstein and Ghislaine was code for sex. First meeting Mitchell at a dinner party attended by other esteemed billionaires and widely acclaimed scientists, Virginia wrote, "My body was put on the banquet menu." Other prominent figures Virginia named include the late governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, who we also know received thousands of dollars in campaign donations from Epstein, billionaire hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, who Virginia says had sex with her while his pregnant wife was asleep in the next room. His wife being Epstein's former girlfriend, Eva Anderson, by the way. And of course, French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, who Virginia says she was sent to have sex with at many places.
But one man Eileen Ford does associate with in Paris is this man, the head of Karen Models, one of the largest and most prestigious agencies in the country. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel.
Brunel has always carried a reputation of being an absolute monster, dating as far back as the late 80s when a 60 Minutes investigation spearheaded by Diane Sawyer revealed his habit of drugging and abusing models from all over the world. His elusiveness earned him the nickname Le Fantôme, or the Ghost, by French prosecutors. Brunel is also a noted longtime personal friend of Epstein, with flight logs indicating he took at least 25 trips on the Lolita Express from 1998 to 2005. Esteemed billionaires and widely acclaimed scientists, Virginia wrote, "My body was put on the banquet menu." Other prominent figures Virginia named include the late governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, who we also know received thousands of dollars in campaign donations from Epstein, billionaire hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, who Virginia says had sex with her while his pregnant wife was asleep in the next room. His wife being Epstein's former girlfriend, Eva Anderson, by the way. And of course, French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, who Virginia says she was sent to have sex with at many places.
But one man Eileen Ford does associate with in Paris is this man, the head of Karen Models, one of the largest and most prestigious agencies in the country. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel.
Brunel has always carried a reputation of being an absolute monster, dating as far back as the late 80s when a 60 Minutes investigation spearheaded by Diane Sawyer revealed his habit of drugging and abusing models from all over the world. His elusiveness earned him the nickname Le Fantôme, or the Ghost, by French prosecutors. Brunel is also a noted longtime personal friend of Epstein, with flight logs indicating he took at least 25 trips on the Lolita Express from 1998 to 2005. According to a report from The Independent, Brunel established an agreement that he would use his influence within the world of fashion to scope out underage girls to groom for Epstein, noting that Brunel continued this work even in the years following his firing from his original agency. He simply started a new one, of which Epstein invested over $1 million to help get off the ground. Brunel was also known for leaving cryptic messages for Epstein at his Palm Beach residence, according to further unsealed court documents. A few examples that have made their way to the press include, "Just did a good one, 18 years, and he has a teacher for you to teach how to speak Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old, not blonde. Lessons are free and you can have your first today if you call." Epstein had proudly slept with over 1,000 of Brunel's girls, according to Virginia, who also claimed that Brunel once gifted Epstein 12-year-old French triplets for his birthday. As a part of her sworn deposition, Virginia recalled that Jeffrey bragged after he met them that they were 12-year-olds and flung flown over from France because they're really poor over there and their parents needed the money, adding that she had in fact seen these triplets with her own eyes. She continued, "He was so excited about the entire event, replayed it over and over again over the next course of weeks, how cute they were, and how you could tell they were really young. He went on to tell me how Brunel bought them in Paris from their parents, offering them the usual sums of money, visas, and modeling career prospects. Laughing the whole way through, Jeffrey thought it was absolutely brilliant how easily money seduced all walks of life. Nothing or no one that couldn't be bought. The triplets were flown back to France after Epstein was done with them." Brunel, unsurprisingly, denied all allegations in 2015, but following Epstein's arrest 4 years later, a new French investigation was launched into the disgraced modeling agent. And in December 2020, Brunel was finally arrested, taken into custody on charges of rape, sexual assault against minors, sexual harassment, criminal conspiracy, and trafficking human beings. While awaiting trial in February 2022, the 76-year-old Brunel was found hanging in his prison cell, dead.
He died exactly the same way Jeffrey Epstein did as well, and also that he wasn't necessarily on suicide watch facing these charges.
Yasmin, these parallels are so striking.
Virginia saw a lot of famous people during her time with Epstein, one being Les Wexner, who she said she had sex with possibly more than 5 times, according to unsealed court documents. Some additional names Virginia mentioned were MIT professor Marvin Minsky, who she says had sex with her on Little St. James Island, billionaire Tom Pritzker, and of course Simpsons creator Matt Groening, who she claims to have given a foot massage during a flight to Los Angeles, recounting how she almost threw up at the shape of his feet. Writing in her memoir, he had yellow, crusty toenails that even someone with a chainsaw would have had troubles cutting through. And then there was the fluffy balls of leftover pieces of sock wedged between the crevices of his sweaty toes. In return, he allegedly compensated her with a drawing of Homer and Bart Simpson made out to her brother and father. Amidst the vast sea of names implicated by Virginia, however, there was one very notable person that stood out among the rest.
I don't really know why you like to defend these high-profile clients. Do you regret it at all? And did you ever see anything untoward about Mr. Epstein?
Alan Dershowitz is a criminal defense attorney who has spent much of his life teaching at Harvard in between representing the most controversial figures he could find. He began his career defending 3 far-right terrorists accused of planning a bomb in the Manhattan office of Imprizio Saul Hurok, successfully getting them off before helping to get another certified good guy off the hook a couple years later. For those of you listening right now, I can't see the screen, it's O.J. Simpson. He was O.J. Simpson's lawyer in 1995, and would go on to provide his services for Mike Tyson during his rape case, Donald Trump during his first impeachment, where he argued it's not illegal for Trump to bribe the Ukrainian president, and was also Harvey Weinstein's lawyer, despite insisting on the view what a big supporter of the Me Too movement he was. In his 6 decades of being a public figure, Dershowitz has also argued in favor of torture during the Iraq War, wrote about lowering the legal age of consent to 16, went to extreme lengths to deny tenure for pro-Palestinian professor Norm Finkelstein after a heated debate the two of them had on Israel, and is actually set to defend the state of Israel against allegations of war crimes at the International Court of Justice sometime in the near future. And of course, he was also the lawyer of Jeffrey Epstein, of whom he considered at one point to be a good friend. In fact, when asked if he'd still be close to Epstein in the event the financier could no longer afford legal counsel in 2003, Dershowitz replied, "Absolutely. I would be as interested in him as a friend if we had hamburgers on the boardwalk in Coney Island and talked about his ideas." What ideas? When he was writing his book, he told Vicky Ward that the only person he'd send drafts to outside of his immediate family was Jeffrey Epstein. Ward also notes that Dershowitz was thrilled to meet none other than Prince Andrew at Epstein's Manhattan residence one time, even letting the prince hang out in the back of his lectures.
I'm thrilled that all these papers have come out. I urged them. I went to court. I asked for everything to come out because I knew that I had done nothing wrong and the papers would exculpate me. I want to make sure every single document comes out. The public has the right to see everything.
Virginia Giuffre first accused Alan Dershowitz of sexual abuse in a 2014 sworn affidavit, claiming under oath that she was forced to have sex with the professor on at least 6 separate occasions, even appearing to get physically sick as she tried to describe the alleged encounters to attorneys. The first time she ever met the Harvard professor, Virginia said on the record, was at the office of Epstein's Manhattan home, which we know from the Vanity Fair article Dershowitz was known to visit. While she stresses it's hard for her to remember things chronologically, she says she is able to recall the most recent time she had sex with Dershowitz, which allegedly happened on an airplane in Massachusetts, as well as the first time in Epstein's bedroom minutes after the financier had left the room. Dershowitz walked in, and Virginia claims they had sex on a red velvet chair. Afterwards, Epstein asked Virginia if he enjoyed it, to which she told him yes. She also claimed that Dershowitz participated in sexual activity in a black limousine involving herself, Epstein, Dershowitz, and another young girl on the way to Dershowitz's house. Virginia also emphasized just how aware Dershowitz was of all the other young girls constantly around Epstein, stating in her affidavit, Dershowitz was so comfortable with the sex that was going on that on one occasion he observed me in sexual activity with Epstein. Virginia also alleged she witnessed Dershowitz having sex with another one of Epstein's young victims at one point, a blonde girl who she assumed to be underage. Dershowitz has since lashed out hard against Virginia, who he's referred to as a borderline pathological liar out to destroy his career in pursuit of money. What happened next was a complicated years-long series of lawsuits in which Virginia went after Dershowitz for defamation, causing Dershowitz to countersue, eventually concluding with a settlement in 2022. After this settlement, Virginia told reporters that she, quote, may have made a mistake in accusing Dershowitz of abusing her. This has now given Dershowitz the green light to openly parade his supposed innocence in a barrage of media appearances, telling everyone who will listen about how wrongfully victimized he was by an attention-seeking liar, and that this is what finally exonerates him. But that's not exactly a fair characterization of the settlement, according to Virginia. As Dershowitz was taking his public victory lap, Virginia told the Daily Beast in an exclusive statement, I was shocked to read that Alan Dershowitz is claiming that our mutual dismissal of our lawsuits against each other somehow exonerated him. The litigation was very stressful and damaging to my family and to my health. We have endured years in which Mr. Dershowitz asserted my charges against him were a lie, made up out of whole cloth, perjury, and part of a purported extortion plot. He has now admitted there was no perjury, no extortion plot, and rather than making up what I said, I honestly believe the charges I made against him. Whether or not Mr. Dershowitz's admissions undermine his previous denials of the charges made against him is for others to say. The settlement agreement limits what I can say, and I will abide by it unless and until I am released from it. However, those admissions are not consistent with exoneration.
I can tell you she is still a prostitute. She is selling false stories now for money about me.
Do you have any concern calling her a prostitute when she was victimized at such a young age by this wealthy man?
She was not victimized. She made her own decisions in life.
But at the age of 15, some would say that's a little young and that she was taken advantage of.
I'm talking about the age of 19. Look, that's between her and the federal government and the people that she claims victimized her.
For what it's worth, I think it should also be said that Virginia had in fact told several people about Dershowitz being involved with Epstein's operation years before her affidavit. And for Dershowitz's part, it would seem he was totally fine with a friend of his making a quote-unquote joke about Epstein housing young girls in 2014. Virginia also reiterated to the Daily Beast that Mr. Dershowitz sued Mr. Boyce, her lawyer, for charging Mr. Dershowitz with participating in Epstein's sex trafficking and other misconduct. Mr. Boyce did not retract any of those charges, but Mr. Dershowitz nevertheless dismissed his claims against Mr. Boyce. That too hardly seems like exoneration. And if that's not enough, another Epstein victim, Sarah Ransom, also accused Dershowitz of having sex with her while she was being trafficked by Epstein. To this day, Ransom has never retracted her allegations against Dershowitz.
All the feminist groups and the radicals who think this is the worst thing in the world, that anybody ever had any contact with Jeffrey Epstein, where are all those radical feminists when it comes to the Hamas rapes of young Jewish girls, sexual abuse, beheadings? They are quiet. They are silent. The incredible hypocrisy of the Me Too movement Me too, except if you're a Jew.
One of the first times Jeffrey Epstein made national headlines was in 2002, in this article written by Landon Thomas Jr., who, by the way, would also go on to write an extremely positive piece for the Financier after he was sentenced for procuring an underage girl for prostitution, and before getting fired from the New York Times for admitting he was still friends with the convicted pedophile. Oh, he also asked Epstein for $30,000 in 2017, according to the Daily Beast, so that's fun. Pretty normal guy. Anyway, in this article, he uses language like he collects beautiful minds, and Epstein brings a trophy hunter's zeal to his collection of scientists and politicians. And that last part certainly isn't wrong, as subsequent data from the Center of Responsive Politics shows Epstein donated to a litany of politicians from both the right and the left, including Chuck Schumer, Bob Dole, Bob Packwood, Elliot Spitzer, and even former President George H.W. Bush. But of those names is a politician who's long been associated with Epstein since the mid-90s. Someone who Virginia says she met on Little St. James, and someone who's already been caught lying about his connection to the late pedophile.
Newly released Jeffrey Epstein court filings revealing more alleged ties to many people, including Bill Clinton.
Epstein was hanging around the 42nd president as early as 1993, a month after he was sworn into office, according to visitor logs provided by the Clinton Presidential Library. Epstein and Ghislaine visited again in September of that year after...
So this is what I got to say. Release the files, bro. Release the files. We done seen enough. We done seen enough, bro. Release the files.
According to these logs, which show that Epstein popped in and out of the White House twice in one day on 3 separate occasions, though there seems to be no stated purpose for any of these visits. Clinton also attended a 3-hour private dinner hosted by former Revlon owner Ron Perlman and other elites in Palm Beach in 1995, a meeting that Clinton had not mentioned until a 28-year-old newspaper snippet obtained by Snopes confirmed it. In the wake of the Epstein story being revitalized by his arrest and death in 2019, Clinton has taken very conscious steps to distance himself from who he once called a highly successful financier and committed philanthropist. After all, Epstein's own lawyers asserted in court documents that Epstein was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative. A fun fact about the Clinton Global Initiative, by the way, is that they once endorsed the Terra Mar Project, an environmental NGO with the self-stated goal of conserving, protecting, and improving oceans, seas, and coastlines. Who founded the Terra Mar Project, you ask? Great question. Let's check it. Whoops. I mean, Snopes has verified that Ghislaine Maxwell did also attend Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010. Featured it right there in the middle. Not even in the background or anything. I didn't even want to hide it. After all, though, she did take the president's daughter out on a yacht trip a year earlier in 2009. Epstein was literally serving a jail sentence, while at the same time, the woman who helped him find victims was taking the president's daughter on a trip through the open seas. But whatever, I'm going insane. Let's take it back to 2002, when Landon Thomas Jr. wrote for the first time about the Clinton-Epstein world tour extravaganza the two men embarked upon, visiting New York, Paris, Bangkok, Brunei, Norway, Morocco, Brussels, and need I go on, all in hopes of providing humanitarian aid for continents like Africa, spreading democracy, empowering the poor, and combating HIV and AIDS, according to a Clinton spokesperson shortly after the trip. Some of the other notable passengers on this famed international excursion included the likes of Chris Tucker and Kevin Spacey, who you can actually see sitting here on Queen Elizabeth's throne next to Ghislaine. According to the Daily Telegraph, they were taking a tour of Buckingham Palace led by Prince Andrew. I love recurring characters. In fact, despite Clinton originally insisting he had only taken 4 rides on the Lolita Express, flight logs indicate Clinton actually took at least 26 rides on Epstein's private jet shortly after leaving office between 2001 and 2003, an assertion that he still has not directly responded to. You wonder why that is. It's pretty out of character for him to lie to the American public, I think we all know. Virginia has never made any allegations of wrongdoing against Clinton himself, but her assertions do go a little further than what the former president has admitted to doing. Virginia stated in her sworn deposition that she personally met Clinton on Little St. James Island at least twice during her travels with Epstein, something that Clinton has long denied across the board, describing in her memoir an alleged dinner where there were only a few of us eating at the dinner table. There was Jeffrey at the head of it all, as always. On the left side was Emmy, another Epstein recruiter, Ghislaine and I. Sitting across the table from us was Bill, with two lovely girls who were visiting from New York. Bill's wife, Hillary's absence from the night made it easy for his apparent provocative, cheeky side to come out. Teasing the girls on either side of him with playful pokes and brassy comments, there was no modesty between any of them. We all finished our meals and scattered in our own different directions. Strolling into the darkness with two beautiful girls around either arm, Bill seemed content to retire for the evening. Now, to Clinton's credit, flight logs obtained through an FOIA request have presented no evidence that he attended the island. Now, yes, he flew with Epstein more times, way more times, than he originally cared to admit. But those same flight records also don't do a lot to imply he ever visited Little St. James. But along with Virginia's sworn deposition, we also have former Clinton aide Doug Band, who Clinton kept in his inner circle.
Have you ever seen the magic glasses that can see clearly without glasses? This glasses can not only see far away, but also see near.
Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt.
So, a little bit of MAGA drama to cover here. This is a fun one. With personalities like this, how could it not be a fun one? So, Tucker Carlson recently hosted Candace Owens on his podcast. And just to set this up a little bit, Nick Fuentes' name comes up. So Candace recently had Fuentes on her podcast. On the interview, some of the clips are surfacing on X. Nick Fuentes became very offended when she asked him why he did not have a wife and or children yet, and started getting pretty hostile about how she, as a woman, shouldn't be lecturing him in that way. So she recounts that here just to set this up, and then they start slinging shit at Nick Fuentes. So let's take a look at this. Sorry.
You just interviewed Nick Fuentes.
I did.
Or had a conversation with him. What did you think of that? What do you think of him?
I mean, I can tell you my experience was entirely fraudulent with him. I never interview people as a gotcha interview. It's always just that he was making the rounds. He's been around for a while, and kind of his story, when I learned it, because he was banned from everywhere, so I didn't actually know what the backstory was with Nick Fuentes, but then I learned it when he was allowed back on X, and Jeremy Boring, who was then the CEO of Daily Wire, did this X Live with him. And
Jeremy Boring did an event with Nick Fuentes?
It was weird. Everything was weird about what happened, but it happened, and he told a story. He did all of that, and apparently then, and I don't know if it was driven by insecurity. He didn't know how his followers would take the interview, but he just did a complete 180. Lied to his audience, pretended that he was surprised it was behind a paywall. We spoke about him and how we were going to release it. He said, great. I mean, it's a total 180 flip. So I can now say that I didn't listen to other people say that Nick was a bad person. I didn't care about what happened when he was 18, 19, 20, 26. I sat across from a person, had a conversation with him. He behaved one way in person and then put on a show for the internet. So I actually can say my experience with Nick Fuentes is that he's a terrible person and a terrible human being, because why would you do that? There's no reason to do that.
I agree.
You could have come back onto the show. You could have had beginning of us discussing various topics. I think in many ways, whatever happened to him when he was 18 may have stunted his growth, meaning that he now is responding to the internet, which is filled with people that don't even use their real names. Right? So really, truly, what the irony of it all is you could just be like the IDF soldiers just pretending to be his supporters, just getting it.
See, kind of going a little negative on the crowd here. They slipped up in this way. That was the first example of it. Talking about the internet is full of people who don't use their real names, laughing at people. Kind of forgetting you guys make your living online. And Fuentes actually brings this up later. Like, you're kind of taking shots at the very people who you pander to for money and who you rely on for ad revenue and membership dollars and things like that. That's called going negative on the crowd. They didn't do it on purpose, but they kind of let that slip a little bit.
Him to say whatever you want because he's going to do whatever you say, but it was strange. It was totally strange. It made no sense. And
Does he have a family or a normal life?
I asked him about that. He said, yeah, it comes from a 2-parent household. That's what he told me.
No, does he have his own family? Does he?
No, he's not married. And I just offered to him, I was like, I think these are things that you learn when you're married. And he just was vicious about it. And,
about
women
what?
don't tell me what to do or whatever it was. And it was very performative. Like, I said the exact same thing to Andrew Tate months earlier. I had him and I said, you should get married. Here's why. And of course, Andrew Tate did not react like that. He told me what his hangups were about marriage. It was just a part of two people communicating on a show. But for whatever reason, he saw this as like an attack.
Okay, so that's kind of the intro, sets things up. Now, just to be clear, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. All right, so she did this interview. She's describing what happened in the interview?
Yeah, in the interview.
Okay.
In the interview, where, he kind of turned on her for, pressing him as to why he didn't have a family. And he claims it's because he really is not set up for a family, because he's been so canceled and so debanked and deplatformed, and he's just a very controversial person. And this is what I want to just kind of get out of the way here. Yeah, he is, as many people in the chat are saying, he does consider the United States, a white country, but then denies he's a white supremacist, saying that's an anti-white slur. He has questioned the numbers about the Holocaust and has been called a Holocaust denier. He denies that he is a Holocaust denier, though he obviously dabbles in that. He was obviously, he was at that Unite the
Man, let's go on and call it what it is. Let's just go on and call it what it is. He did not like a woman speaking on the fact that he says out his own mouth. And everybody got their own prerogative, but he says out his own mouth that he's a virgin. So he's 26, 27 years old. He says he's a virgin. And he has all of these overly controlling tendencies or viewpoints when it comes to women. He thinks women shouldn't vote. He thinks women need to be trad wives, all this type of stuff. But he himself does not have a wife or a girlfriend. So when somebody points that out or brings that up, goes to ask a question, or maybe Lynn like, hey, you got any girls you talking to or whatever, he go to lashing out. Now, I don't know why you would lash out. That's why she mentioned, even when she had the conversation with Andrew Tate, she said Andrew Tate just gave her his opinions on what it is to be married and how he disagrees with it. But he lashed out, as you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna let Tucker say what he gonna say, but he kind of lashed out. You feel me? Really, when he didn't need to. He went on the attack and kind of played his hand. Definitely played his hand for sure.
Which may be what they're talking about when they say what happened to him when he was 18, because I believe he's 26 now, so the math kind of works out that is about at that time. So, yeah, look, I mean, none of this is an endorsement of Nick Fuentes, but it does expose, I think, some meaningful rifts in the space. And Tucker, I got to say, does not come out of this looking all that great. And so with that, let's continue on, because now Tucker starts insinuating that essentially Nick Fuentes is an op meant to discredit the more serious right-wing commentariat.
I judge people according to my experiences with them, and so Nick is being judged according to my experience with him.
But like, what is this?
I don't
and
get
where
it.
does
I don't
the funding
understand
come
it.
from? I probably shouldn't even say this, but the only reason I know who he is because someone sent me a video a few years ago of him attacking me, and I was like, so I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, first of all, this kid's really talented, like legit, and I can assess that just having done the job for so long. So it's like, wow, lots of talent, native talent, and he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever, and I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. And my father dies, and I learn, actually, yeah, was involved in that world. Completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. I'm like, well, how the hell would this child from Chicago, my dad was 84 when he passed. Like, who does this guy know who my dad is? And like, he's in intelligence. How would he know that?
Okay, so there, Tucker claims that he only learned of his dad's involvement with the CIA upon his passing in March of this year, 2025. Well, Fuentes was all over this, so Fuentes pulls the receipt here. Here's video dated June of 2024 of Tucker Carlson admitting that his dad was CIA connected.
Hey, my name is Kyle Smith. Want to introduce.
Yeah, it got real bad for Tucker right here. Real bad for Tucker. And really, I just don't like liars in general. I've been started looking at Tucker funny way back when he got sued when he was working at Fox the first time, right after, I don't know if it was after or before the Rachel Maddow got sued, but I remember when he got sued, he came out and said he doesn't report the news, he's just a pundit. That was their stance in the case. And when I noticed he took that stance, I started looking at all his commentary different. I started noticing, oh, he was just spewing the talking points from the base. So he really, when he sees Nick Fuentes, he sees a younger version of himself, a younger, more extreme version of himself, probably in my eyes. But he compares him to Buchanan, which he dunked on Buchanan back in the day. So it kind of lines up. But he loses his credibility when he says his dad was not in the CIA or he didn't know, and then comes out and he already has had on clip saying that he knows that his dad worked alongside CIA, and they got pictures of Tucker Carlson holding like a AR in Iran or where I don't even know where he was at. I think it was during the Iran Contra. He could have been any host number of places, but that's how he was spending his early adulthood, right? He was spending his early adulthood. So to say that you didn't know what your dad was doing, or you didn't have some type of semblance or idea, that's straight cap, right? So Nick got him with that. But I feel like Tucker is onto something when he's saying it's extremists like Buddy who come into these established movements and they cause confusion, they cause dissent, they mess up things. Like with the whole Nazi Germany thing, and I'm gonna go into this as well, not today, probably tomorrow or the day after, explaining how the Communist Party, right, in Germany was co-opted by the Nazis. They took what the populist movement was, the grassroots movement everybody was behind at the time was communism, being more of not authoritarian, but a democratic socialism. And they took that and they leaned on that and they flipped it and became authoritarian uh, all the way. So you got to understand how they play on the populace and how they lean and on our people for the vote, and how they put these finessers into the ranks to influence you to do bullshit or to exactly take over the movement. As I'm gonna show that the Nazis took over the German Communist Party. They whole populist movement they already had jumping.
of looking into what is dog food, how is it made.
And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA, but I'm not being false about it.
Okay, well, kind of being false about it now, because then he pulls the receipt playing what we just saw.
Native talent. And he's attacking my dad. As the CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn, actually, yeah, you know, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, apparently that's not just a fact. And this made me think of this piece of video that went kind of viral a few years ago. It made the rounds again in light of that, what we just saw. But here is Tucker admitting to Dave Rubin that, you know, he will lie if cornered.
At this point, when they just lie again and again, and we have the internet to expose the lies. If this isn't 20 years ago when you were on CNN, and we couldn't expose things, we can expose it now, and they still do it.
Well, I guess I would ask myself, like, I mean, I lie. If I'm really cornered or something, I lie. I really try not to.
Okay, well, that is an interesting admission. Yes, I mean, that makes this last thing kind of make a lot more sense, because it sure seems that Tucker just flat out lied to Candace Owens there when he said he didn't know his father was CIA until 2025. I mean, you're on video basically saying that 1 year ago in 2024. All right, so this kind of gets worse for Tucker as it goes along. Let's take a little bit closer look here.
Anyway, like, who is this kid exactly? And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in the same, roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's like, you know, making Holocaust jokes. And it's like, is it possible that this is like David Duke? David Duke, every time I had a new show, David Duke would endorse my show. I don't know. Who the hell is David Duke? Well, David Duke is obviously part of a campaign to discredit people on the right, obviously. And I think it's very obvious that Nick Fuentes is exactly the same. Doesn't mean everything he says is false. It doesn't mean he's not talented. He's enormously talented. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. I'm not attacking him personally. But he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices.
You know,
that's obvious to me. I've been around a long time. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, and I will say I don't understand it. We were very kind to him. Like, I truly, like, we almost said, like, we felt maybe he was a bit lonely. We should invite him back for dinner. I mean, that's how good of an experience I had.
It's clearly.
And then it was a 180. So it's either A, it's being driven from like a little boy insecurity, and he just was so worried that he like just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think there's that could
be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on.
Yeah. Or it's
oh boy.
Fuck you. You suck.
See, now starts getting more personal here.
What you're saying, where he does this.
Hey, that boy went off. Hold up. That boy went off. I'm going to have to put him back on the screen. He just went off. I didn't even mean to take him off the screen. I meant to mute up.
In the United States to say this foreign policy is bad. It killed my wife. I was a part of it. Joe Kent is actually someone the CIA doesn't like at all because he understands how it operates. And for Nick Fuentes, who's like some child from Chicago, to go after him specifically, one congressional seat in Washington State.
Is random.
It's not random, though. It's the opposite of random. Joe Kent was #1 on the list of people they wanted to knock off, people who believe in our neocon foreign policy. They wanted Joe Kent out because he could stand up and say, I actually know. I've got the receipts. My wife was killed in Syria. You had to take that guy out. And Nick Fuentes, this child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago, is participating in a super PAC to bump off Joe Kent. Like, I've been around this my whole life. I know what that is.
You insulted him a little bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
So about this Joe Kent thing, you know, Tucker Carlson makes it sound as though, you know, Joe Kent was this real enemy of the neocon establishment, was really in the crosshairs of the deep state. And when he ran for Congress, Nick Fuentes tried to sink his campaign, and therefore Nick Fuentes must be a neocon op who is elevated in order to undermine anti-neocon figures and candidates like Joe Kent. Okay, problem with that. Nick Fuentes tweets out, Tucker Carlson claimed that I am part of a campaign to discredit authentic anti-neocon figures. His proof is that I randomly opposed Joe Kent, who says he is the perfect example of such a figure. This is the reason I opposed Joe Kent. What do you think? So the reason, as I'm going to reveal now, that Nick Fuentes apparently had a falling out with Joe Kent is because the Kent campaign did an event with Nick Fuentes, possibly pursuing his endorsement. And then once it came out that he was doing that, and once he realized how toxic Nick Fuentes was as a character because of how polarizing he is, Joe Kent then disavowed Nick Fuentes. So Joe Kent says, my opponents are again spreading lies about me. I strongly condemn Nick Fuentes' politics. And then here's interesting, especially in regards to our ally, Israel. So this anti-neocon foreign policy warrior apparently is very pro-Israel, right? Which doesn't jibe with the whole anti-neocon thing. This is why, you know, Michael Tracy said, why do we even have the word neocon anymore? What difference does it make whether you call yourself a neocon anymore? If you're this committed to Israel, you may as well be a neocon. I ignored his invitation to speak at his recent conference in Orlando, and I am not aware of, nor do I accept any endorsement from him. So in July of 22, the AP reported GOP's links to extremism surface in congressional primary. Kent has also sought support from figures associated with white nationalist Groyper Army movement led by Nick Fuentes, an internet personality who had promoted white supremacist beliefs and attended the 2017 white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, as well as the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Kent has acknowledged that a political consultant set up a call early in his campaign that Fuentes was part of, where expanding his campaign's reach on social media was discussed. But he denied that there was any sort of formal arrangement and distanced himself from Fuentes in March after their affiliation became broadly known. Kent tweeted at the time that he did not want Fuentes' endorsement due to his focus on race and religion. So clearly what happened here is very different from what Tucker says happened here. Tucker says that Nick Fuentes just took it upon himself to oppose this anti-neocon congressional America First candidate. That does not seem to be the reality of what happened. What seems to have happened is that Kent was kind of soliciting Fuentes' help and endorsement, and then once he realized how toxic Fuentes was, he disavowed Fuentes, and that's when Fuentes said, well, okay, fuck me, fuck you too. That apparently was how it went down. It wasn't that Nick Fuentes just decided, you know what, here's a guy who hates neocons, I'm going to sink him. That was Tucker's categorization of this. And by the way, things turned out okay for Joe Kent, who is actually now been appointed the counterterrorism chief just now. That just happened a couple days ago. The Senate confirmed him 52-44. Yeah.
Hang on. I thought he was just a white supremacist. He's an anti-Israel white supremacist? Well, that's a bridge too far then.
Yeah, that's a bridge too far. Exactly. All right. So, again, that's another, I won't say lie, but another pretty gross distortion that Tucker got caught in there. Pretty egregiously mischaracterizing the whole Joe Kent thing.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words, create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough.
It's just an organized effort.
Yeah.
And he also did the thing that David Duke always did, including to me, which is be like, oh, yeah, it's my friend. And everyone's like, oh, Tucker Carlson's been endorsed by David Duke. I've been making like the anti-racist argument my whole life.
Right.
Like, I'm not for David Duke. Do I think David Duke is right when he's against affirmative action? You bet I do. But I'm not for David Duke. But David Duke would try to discredit people by hugging them. And that's exactly what Fuentes did. He goes out there, meet all these people, shop, hi, I'm Nick Fuentes. Can I get my picture with you? That's a campaign to destroy credible voices on the right. And Fuentes is part of it. And I know I'm inviting endless trouble by saying this because, this is a kid with a lot of spare time, but it's just a fact. And I've seen it a lot.
Yeah.
And you can believe me or not, but I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, now, once again, I'm not going to sit up here and defend Nick Fuentes. I don't know much about him, but, I do know that Charlottesville rally was obviously awful, and I think enough of his past statements kind of speak for themselves. So this is, in no way an endorsement of Nick Fuentes, but I do have to say, in terms of credibility, for Tucker to go out there and say, well, he reminds you of David Duke as a guy who wraps his arm around you and then poisons your reputation because he's so non-credible. Well, is Nick Fuentes less credible than this guy, Darryl Cooper, who, to Tucker Carlson's face, said that the Russian deaths in the POW camps in World War II were an accident of logistics and due to poor planning by the Germans? Let's take a look at this minute of video here.
Look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler's chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. You have letters as early as July, August 1941 from commandants of these makeshift camps that they're setting up for these millions of people who are surrendering or people they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after Barbarossa was launched. And they're writing back to the high command in Berlin saying, we can't feed these people. We don't have the food to feed these people. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
Okay.
Loading up my next video. The
shooter who murdered my sweet little Daniel brought a highly lethal weapon with him to my son's first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary. In approximately 4 minutes.
The media likes to portray left and right extremism as being equally evil and dangerous. This is commonly referred to as horseshoe theory. If you follow both left or right-wing ideology to their extremes, they eventually become equivalent to one another. This is wrong for a variety of historical and ideological reasons. In today's video, we're going to take left-wing ideology and right-wing ideology, drag them out to their extremes in both personal characteristics and government policies, and show how right-wing extremism is morally worse and a much bigger threat. Let's first establish general left versus right values, starting with the left. The left is broadly progressive. The left believes in caring for all and uplifting the poor. They believe in limiting the power of moneyed interests and corporations, and most importantly, view politics through material conditions. This means how much money people have and their access to housing, food, healthcare, employment, and technology. These material conditions are seen as the biggest determiner in how a society functions. Violence, poverty, and general social dynamics are at their core influenced by material conditions above all else. The left believes in wealth redistribution and a strong central state that can provide infrastructure and meet the basic needs of all people. The left believes in strong social safety nets and making sure that people in weaker positions, like the old, disabled, and minority groups, should be uplifted. They lastly value internationalism and solidarity amongst the global working class. Now let's take a look at right-wing values. The right is conservative, praising tradition over progressive ways of thinking. The right typically opposes political and social reform. Being inherently opposed to progressivism and new ideas, the role they play is often an oppositional reaction to social and economic reforms proposed by the left, hence the term describing them reactionary. The right typically values past traditions and usually wants to return to a time in the past where the society supposedly had better values and was more prosperous. The right believes in natural hierarchies. There are always winners and losers, and the human condition cannot overcome these natural ways of living. Hard work and morality are the biggest determiners in your place in society. Right-wingers believe that the conditions of society, like poverty, social dynamics, and crime, are not the result of people's material conditions. Poverty and crime are a reflection of personal and moral failures. They therefore believe in equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. Oftentimes, this hierarchy is tied to nationalism, race, or religion. They prefer a smaller government but large military and value national interest. Now let's briefly touch on the center. The center wants to maintain the status quo. The center in modern times is reflected in what many often refer to as neoliberal politics. They do not believe or want to fundamentally change the economic system. They believe in free markets and much less constrained capitalism. Liberals do not believe in a hierarchical society as conservatives do. They speak to underprivileged groups, but largely don't believe in or are not willing to enact radical economic programs or reforms. Instead of focusing on funding social services, safety nets, and universal programs like the left, liberals prefer information campaigns and a media culture war to uplift underprivileged groups. Liberals and centrism love procedures and rules. They love trying to work with Republicans even when they're actively spitting in their face. Centrists often create programs to help minority groups, but many only focus on improving visibility and representation. Their vision of success is getting diverse people into the top jobs in the same oppressive structures in government or corporations, dominating the communities they come from. From a left-wing view, centrism ignores the root causes of inequality by avoiding big reforms like universal healthcare, raising the minimum wage, addressing policing, or wealth inequality. They see progress as just selecting a more diverse ruling class. From a right-wing view, centrism is seen as giving special treatment when everyone is supposedly starting on equal ground. This, coupled with liberals' desire to maintain the obviously failing status quo, and elitism, frustrates both sides, which is why people on the left and the right hate liberals. Many people in the United States confuse liberals with the left when liberals are very much not leftists. Many self-proclaimed liberals in the US only call themselves liberals because of mainstream media framing. Liberalism is presented as the only alternative to conservatism or the Republican Party. In reality, when you ask them about key policy issues, like cutting the military budget, legalizing marijuana, free college, universal healthcare, canceling student debt, and medical debt, their views are far to the left of the Democratic Party and liberalism. The center/liberals believe that the current system is broken, we just need to make a couple tweaks to fix it. Never anything too fundamental. While the left believes that the system is not broken, but working exactly as intended. Capitalism will naturally create the problems we are seeing in society. The left does not want to fix the current system, but dismantle it and create a different system. So in reality, there are a lot of people in the US who may claim to be liberals, but are actually leftists. Now that we have a very condensed idea of left, right, and center, let's take these ideologies to the extreme and show which ideology is more dangerous. The criteria we are using to judge the morality of each extreme is which ideology gives the best outcomes to pursue happiness, peace, and enrichment for a majority of society. First, let's talk about your average right-wing conservative. As a moderate conservative, you believe in hierarchy. You see winners and losers in society, but you think it's based on merit. People get what they deserve by working hard or making good choices. Maybe your family struggled in the past, but they pulled through by working hard and doing everything the right way. And now you're looking around and wondering why other people can't do the same. To you, things like poverty or crime aren't about systemic issues. They're excuses. You're tired of hearing about handouts when you and your family didn't need them. You wouldn't call yourself a racist at all. You might have minority friends you genuinely like. Maybe you work or grew up with some. You respect the ones you know personally, the ones who work hard and do it the right way. But when you look at the larger picture, it's harder to feel the same way. You see the news or scroll online, and it's full of stories about crime, drugs, or poverty in minority communities. It starts to feel like those things aren't just individual problems, but tied to cultures or communities. And politically, you're frustrated. You've seen your town go downhill over the years, jobs disappeared, industries left, and everything has gotten more expensive. Democrats or liberals in power didn't fix any of that. If anything, things got worse. You miss the days when your community had better paying jobs and people seemed to have stronger values. You like someone like Trump because he sticks it to those liberal elites who are completely out of touch with normal people like you. You're not extreme though. You might laugh at an edgy joke here and there, but you don't see yourself as one of those far right types. Their open racism or fascism is a step too far for you. Now let's take those baseline right-wing beliefs to the extreme. Let's look at the far right. Maybe your town was pretty homogenous, or maybe the only minorities you saw were poor and struggling. You probably had someone in your life, like an uncle, parent, or cousin, who was openly bigoted and planted those ideas in you early on. Once you started getting online, the stuff you saw there backed up what you already thought. It's not that some people aren't working hard, it's because they can't. They're not making bad decisions because of bad luck or tough circumstances, they're making those decisions because they're inferior. And you start going deeper into those ideas. It's their genetics, their culture, their religion.
So you're telling me that it's not healthy to obsess over your partner 24/7 like I do? What you've described there is often associated with an anxious attachment style. As soon as you notice your partner pulling away, confusion arises and you want to solve it. Maybe you're constantly feeling on your toes, like what is their next move gonna be? Do they still like me or not? It keeps us in this perpetual state of what's next. Why does that happen though? We gravitate towards it because we might have learned to associate love with intensity. Really? So what do I do to fix this? I'd want to develop a more secure attachment style, and the good news is that is actually something that you can work towards. Therapy, like BetterHelp, is a great place to learn more about yourself, understand why you think the way that you do, and become the person you want to be. By signing in with BetterHelp, you can match with a licensed therapist who specializes in relationships, all through the comfort of your own home. Oh, that's convenient. But what if I don't get along with my therapist? Well, therapy is all about finding the right fit. Luckily, there are over 30,000 therapists on their platform worldwide, where if you don't fit with one, you can always switch at no extra cost. I'm signing up.
All of it is supposedly worse than yours. Poverty and crime aren't because of material conditions or any system, it's because those people are naturally like that. And now it's not just their problem, it's society's problem. They're the reason for crime, poverty, and everything else that's wrong with the world. They're taking your jobs, they're ruining your country. The solution, according to these extremists, is to get rid of them. Whether it's controlling birth rates, forcing them out, or outright violence, the goal is a pure society. If they don't do something now, there'll be more of them than us, and that can't happen. At first, it's just online talk. You find some message board full of people who feel the same way, and you start hanging out there. Maybe you even show up to a protest in real life, covering your face, of course, to complain about a mosque being built or something. But here's the important thing. This ideology always ends in violence. That's the final step. It's terrorism directed at the outgroup. The mass shootings in New Zealand, New York, Texas, there are countless examples of where this goes. Those shooters didn't act in a vacuum. They wrote manifestos, and guess what was on them? The same far-right talking points you'll find on those message boards. This type of targeted violence is almost exclusively right-wing. On a personal level, far-right extremists are some of the most isolated, miserable people you'll ever meet. Most of them are losers. They've got maybe one or two friends in real life, and they're constantly trying to outdo each other in how extreme they can get. The rest of their social life is online, hanging out in echo chambers with racists and incels. There are two main types of these guys. First, you've got the more socially awkward ones. They're bitter, jaded, and insecure. They don't share their views confidently in real life, so they stick to dark humor or mumble it under their breath. Online, they're very loud. Then you've got the Proud Boy types. These people need to play up their masculinity and 1950s-ass idea of male values. Unsurprisingly, the people who want to play up their masculinity are also deeply insecure and cowardly. They love playing pretend cowboy and dedicating their life to hating others. They channel their insecurities into the most pathetic form of community imaginable and a fake form of ethnic white unity. Truly, some of the biggest losers in the world. To live this lifestyle is corrosive to the core, and these are deeply sad, miserable people. That was the personal journey of extremism. But it doesn't take a genius to guess what the results are when far-right extremism captures a country's government. Let's look at some far-right governments. Taking baseline conservative instincts of hierarchy and in-and-out groups to their extreme has dire consequences. Conservatism is inherently dividing. The degree of how far on the right translates to how far you crack down on the people you think are different from you. As a result, far-right extremism results in brutal attacks on perceived outgroups. Employing the power of the state, its media, and industry against targeted groups leads to oppression, apartheid, or extermination. A majority of the worst atrocities you can think of in the past 150 years or so can be tied directly to this ideology. In Spain, Francisco Franco's fascist forces carried out mass executions, suppressed languages and cultures, and killed hundreds of thousands of civilians and political prisoners. In Central America, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras all experienced right-wing paramilitary operations. These were trained and funded by the US to overthrow popular, democratically elected socialist governments. These paramilitaries committed widespread atrocities, massacring civilians to ensure the governments remained loyal to US interests. Combined, these actions resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. In fascist Italy, Benito Mussolini embraced an extreme right-wing ideology rooted in ultranationalism, militarism, and the subjugation of perceived inferior groups. Mussolini's government orchestrated the mass murder of political opponents and marginalized groups through internment camps. During wars of expansion in Ethiopia and Libya, fascist forces used chemical weapons, razed villages, and imprisoned civilians in brutal conditions. In Chile, socialist leader Salvador Allende was overthrown in a US-backed coup, leading to Augusto Pinochet's brutal regime. Pinochet's government tortured, killed, and disappeared tens of thousands of people. In the United States, the Ku Klux Klan terrorized and killed tens of thousands in a campaign of racist violence and terrorism. Japanese fascism, often overlooked in these discussions, justified its atrocities with a belief of ethnic and cultural superiority. This ideology led to an estimated tens of millions of deaths across Asia. In China alone, Japanese forces directly killed 10 to 25 million people and indirectly caused the deaths of up to 50 million through starvation and other means, all the while committing some of the most depraved atrocities imaginable, such as human experiments and the infamous rape of Nanking. The most infamous example, of course, is Nazi Germany, which industrialized mass murder to an unprecedented degree, resulting in an estimated 15 million deaths. You could go on for much longer, touching on the far-right extremism and fascism in places like Indonesia, Greece, Portugal, and so on. These examples underscore the devastating consequences of right-wing extremism when it captures state power. Whether targeting groups based on ethnicity, religion, race, or ideology, the result has consistently been terror and mass killings. These are just some of the most infamous instances. Okay, now let's take your average left-wing person. If you're left-wing, you've got at least a basic understanding of capitalism and how it is tied to poverty, homelessness, and crime. When you see someone struggling, your instinct isn't to judge them or feel disappointed in their actions. You're asking, what can society do to help them? And empathy is in front and center in your worldview. You'll point out the flaws in the capitalist system, but you're not about to overthrow the whole thing. You're skeptical of revolution, but looking for big changes, and you think we can get there without tearing everything down. You still believe in the current institutions, and maybe you're imagining something like social democracies in Europe, especially those in Scandinavia with stronger social safety nets and fairness baked into society. Look at how popular Bernie Sanders was in 2016 and 2020. That's the kind of left we're talking about here. You're not necessarily diving into Marxist or revolutionary ideas, you're focused on making changes happen within the system as it stands. Now let's take those baseline left-wing ideas to the extreme. They're just as empathetic as your average leftist, but you're a lot more direct and critical about calling out capitalism as the root of the problem. For you, it's not about fixing the system, but overthrowing it. Capitalism isn't just flawed, it's the crux of the problem. And if that means violent revolution, you're ready for it. In fact, most believe that violent revolution might be the only way to remove the ruling class. You probably participate in or organize labor unions, political parties, or activist groups. You're uncompromising in your beliefs, and you have no patience for fascists or racists. Similar to the far right, your ideology can sometimes make you stand out or even feel isolated in mainstream social settings. You might be more out there in terms of appearance with tattoos, piercings, or clothing. Far left groups are typically diverse, and there really isn't an out group. Everyone is generally accepted except for the far right. When it comes to violence, far left extremism have much different targets and philosophy compared to the far right. They're not out targeting random civilians or marginalized groups. They're going after fascists or the state. Antifa is the common boogeyman and is painted as the worst of leftist extremism, the left's version of a school shooter. Unless you are a fascist or a Nazi, which we can all hopefully agree are universally bad ideologies, you have nothing to fear. Their violence is directed towards fascists so that they can never feel comfortable enough to march openly and attack minority groups. The media would like you to believe horseshoe theory that Antifa violently defending minorities is the equivalent of a mass shooter going into a grocery store and indiscriminately killing minorities. The left extremist goal is an objectively more admirable goal than wholesale massacre. Despite what media might say, far-left violence is almost always directed at specific targets, not innocent random people. The Center for Strategic and International Studies in 2020 revealed that over the previous 25 years, the vast majority of terrorist attacks and plots in the US were perpetrated by far-right attackers. 90% of all terrorism in 2020 alone was right-wing. Of the remaining leftist terrorist attacks, there were acts like assaults, firebombings, and arson. Even environmental protesters sitting on roads or treetops were often registered as acts of terrorism. Actual targeted attacks on individuals with deadly violence from a leftist is exceedingly rare. The most recent prominent case being Luigi Mangione. I'll let you decide for yourself if that violent act is the equivalent to a right-wing person targeting a random black person or immigrant in a grocery store. I'm not saying you cannot find examples of left-wing extremists killing innocent people, but looking at targets and frequency, it's not even a question of which is worse. Meanwhile, we have constant right-wing attacks year after year to the point where it's a fairly common occurrence. Now, I know what many people associate with the far left, especially Americans, is identity politics. While the far right is fairly universal in their messaging, the far left tends to splinter, particularly with messaging around identity. While all leftists want what's best for everyone in marginalized groups, there can be a large difference in the messaging and way to achieve that. There are broadly two camps. The first method focuses on universality, meaning focusing on uniting everyone on an equal field and speaking to every group at the same level. There may be specific groups that are struggling more, but the best way to help them is by focusing on raising all working class people's standards together. Hyper-focusing on specific identities only divides the working class and alienates people who would have otherwise been on board with the class struggle. It drives their attention away from class politics to focusing on their racial, gender, and identity differences. In the modern day, this method of messaging is typically divided between Eastern and Western leftists. The former Soviet Union and currently Communist China does not participate in any type of identity politics messaging that you would be familiar with in the West, focusing much more on universalism amongst class. Modern Western leftists tend to focus much more on individual identities and develop specific messaging campaigns and terminology. They attempt the impossible task of trying to accommodate catered messaging to every possible difference between different groups, usually to the dissatisfaction of every group. While this is certainly done in good faith and by well-intentioned people on the left, the alienation that this has done on the working class is undeniable.
Rules.
People who pick post-university for an MS in business intelligence
specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender.
New wave academic terminology, discourse, and aggressive messaging around marginalized groups can be off-putting and not very accessible for your average working class person. Western leftists have placed themselves on a tightrope between messaging on universal programs that benefit everyone, while at the same time not wanting to figuratively or literally abandon specific groups. This has undoubtedly contributed to the failure of the left in the West. The right wing capitalizes on this weakness by using working class people's annoyance with identity politics to vote completely against their best interests and focus on the culture war. Now let's get to the far left government. Before we get into discussing the far left government, please take a second to subscribe and like the video. Thank you. Let's look at what happens when these far left beliefs are held in positions of power. The left's main targets are those who are perpetuating systems of inequality: capitalists, wealthy elites, and landlords. Unlike the far right, where violence is directed downward onto marginalized outgroups, far left violence is directed upward to those in positions of power. The left's targets are a very small, highly powerful elite and fascists, in stark contrast to the far right's focus on much larger portions of the population, entire ethnicities, religions, immigrants, or those with different sexual orientations. It is undeniably more just to challenge those exploiting others than to persecute individuals based on inherent traits or identity. Far-right governments seek to reinforce or expand existing hierarchies through policies of apartheid, genocide, or ethnic cleansing. Left-wing governments, even when authoritarian, aim to eradicate feudal systems, redistribute land, and eliminate poverty. These goals are intended to benefit the majority, even if they fail in execution. After addressing the atrocities of far-right regimes, it's essential to confront the darker chapters of far-left governments as well. One significant group of victims under far-left regimes have been those perceived as traitors or counter-revolutionaries. These victims, most notably during Stalin's purges, the Cultural Revolution, and the Khmer Rouge genocide, were casualties of paranoia, authoritarianism, and internal power struggles. Undoubtedly, many, if not most of the victims were loyal communists or innocents swept up in the chaos. However, it is crucial to separate these actions from the core tenets of leftist ideology. Nowhere in Marx's works does it advocate for purges, paranoia, or suppression of intellectuals. These killings were products of authoritarianism and power struggles, not intrinsic to leftist ideology. This is a fundamental difference between the far left and far right. These are traits that can manifest in any regime, right-wing or left-wing. To act like
Sometimes I am.
My bad, I'm back here. Back here vacuuming and my computer acting slow. I'm trying this I'm trying restream, but really restream kind of let me down today because they exposed. I'm doing this off the phone. I'm trying to change the settings. So next time when I go live, this shit don't look like this. This shit look like I'm going live in the Instagram. I'm playing, I'm sharing the screen like but it's look like an Instagram video. Like I gotta switch that. I can't have my grifting on low IQ episodes looking like an Instagram live. Even though I don't know, that might give it some character. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. But I don't think that's the way. I want to touch on this. I'm dealing with the whole right wing thing, man. Look, see that go to vacuum in the background. I'm finna get my girl.
With these women is insane. All right, so Morgan Ariel, that's one of the girls we talked about, she quote tweeted that comment from Emily Saves America, and she said, "You give it up for free, ho, might want to sit this one out." So she's saying you shouldn't even be commenting on this or about her race size. You give it up for free. She's getting married. She's staying in her lane, whatever, like sit this one out. And then Pearl jumps back in. She had already been tweeting about Sarah and the ring and her marriage and all of that stuff. Pearl jumps in. She responds to Morgan and says, "Morgan, you are a single mother with a public video admitting that you have HPV. You may want to sit this one out too." And then Morgan responds with that, which I will let you guys read on your own time. And then Emily jumps right back in. Again, guys, these are conservative female influencers, conservative in quotes, air quotes. Emily says, "Morgan, your baby daddy abandoned you. You're raising a bastard child, but yet somehow, some way you think you're better than me or anyone on this app. You gave it up for free, got left in the dust, and now post rage bait on X to supplement the inadequacy of your monthly child support payments." Like now this is like the cuts are going deep Like, these women are lashing out. They are basically trying to dunk on each other, like, who is the most hoe of all of the hoes, who is the least trad. It is like, instead of, like, this is like the reverse of what the left does. Like, the left will try to dunk on each other, and they will try to be so morally superior. I'm more politically correct. I've done all these things. I've donated to these causes. I posted the black square. I do all the right things. I go to the right protests. On the right, it's just like, you are a hoe. You do this. You do whatever. It's just like tearing people down. Anyway, that's sort of what's happening. And then this is just where, this is the doozy. This was like the tweet to end all tweets. You would think that it all peaked here, but it just kept going. So Morgan then responds, and she says, she's talking to Emily. Oh my God. None of that is true, Emily. But unlike you, I don't lie. So here are some facts. Oh my God, I can't even believe I'm going to read this. No, Max, you can put this back on screen. People need to see this. Let's bring it back. I'm so sorry. You were engaging in sexual acts, I would say, in the middle of a hotel lobby at a TPUSA event while everyone around you watched and there were families around. You brag about having sex with married MAGA dads and doing drugs. You have been completely ran through by both single and married men in the right wing. You call young virgins losers and encourage them to have premarital sex, and you are pro-abortion. That's true. You are a disgusting feminist, or... oh my God, with a Jezebel spirit, who uses filters in all of her videos and lives in rebellion to God while grifting off of the conservative movement and simultaneously trashes women who desire to live, to love.
Hold up, she being way too PG-13 with this. Okay, I'm finna go to my dog Reese Waters, because I know Reese Waters gonna give it up unadulterated. Hey man, we want to know what was really said. I don't want to get this PG-13. Okay, we want to know who was doing what. She said you was ran through, man. We try and figure it out. And you don't want to put the tweets on the screen. Come on, baby girl. Shout out to the content creator, man. Shout out to Brett Cooper, man. She trying to keep it PG-13. We need the real. You hear me? I'm trying to figure out what these hoes was doing to my trad wife. I'm trying to see something. Allegedly. To my trad wife. Damn. Don't worry, I'm on your ass. Reese Waters, I know you got something for me, Reese. Do I got to type this in on my damn search bar? I thought I had it in my watch latest. I will put this in the search bar. They don't know about me. Bless you. Where you at, gang? Son, absolutely not. Use your words. I don't even know what you want.
Clear. Emily then responded back to Morgan, your baby daddy abandoned and hopes we can build a more perfect union. And also laugh. As usual, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Racism. And of course, if you have any nominees, you can drop them in the comments. You can email me at admin@reesewaters.com. Now, we have seen a lot of MAGA on MAGA crime, be it Matt Gaetz versus Kevin McCarthy, or when decency came around and took out Matt Gaetz. We've seen Lauren Boebert versus the Uniparty, and then the decency came around and got Lauren Boebert. We've seen Laura Loomer against Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we've seen Laura Loomer against Nikki Haley, and we've seen Laura Loomer against Candace Owens, and decency coming back around and taking out Laura Loomer. We have seen a lot of...
All right, come with me. I'm going to show you why oats overnight is your new favorite breakfast. It all starts with high quality, no artificial flavors, sweet.
Is Nick Fuentes still on Candace Owens?
Your super bitchy black token. Like, it is what it is. So,
okay. You getting good video footage? All right, check back with me if something different happens. We have seen a whole lot of MAGA on MAGA violence, but nothing like this. Today's nominee, the right-wing e-girls and trad wives community. Hey, Black MAGA. I know you down bad. Hey, get Byron Donalds a tissue. His Beijing is running. His whole collar is black. Tim, get him. All right. Look, now, Black MAGA, I know that you are probably acquainted with the right-wing e-girls and the trad wives and all that, but you guys probably are not. So let me just enlighten you to who we talking about right now.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To like be xenophobic nationalism is better?
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity.
Why?
So if everyone in a state wants something, go ahead and have it.
So if everyone in Alabama wanted slavery back, you'd be okay with that?
Sure. If everyone in the state wants it, go ahead. What do I give a
So yes, it's these trolls online that we're talking about going ham. A bunch of right-wing e-girls are fighting over a ring and airing each other's dirtiest laundry. This got so trashy so fast. Anyone got some popcorn? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. It's about time they started selling concessions for this kind of thing. You know? Why aren't we on top of that? Right-wing conservatives project an image of being upstanding, pure citizens only concerned with protecting family values. They need to edit this. It's third family values. Third family values. Right, Trump?
Automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
We lucky Elon Musk got packed up, or we would be in the teens. You know, an image they can use to attack the corrupt and sinful LGBT community. But that mask never slips faster when they start fighting each other. And this fight, ooh boy, this one is a doozy. It all started when a right-wing e-girl named Sarah Stock posted a pic of her engagement ring. The Rift TV contributor, who proudly calls herself a Christian nationalist, simply wrote, "I won," as she showed off her rock. Should be nothing but congrats from other right-wing girlies, right? Not so much. YouTube star Hannah Pearl Davis, an anti-feminist who's been called the female Andrew Tate, reposted the stock photo along with a Regina George level mean girl compliment that turned to insult, writing, "Hottest right-wing e-girl taken off the market. Conservative women will always use their marriage and family to build their brand." That is, unless they meet, what did Laura Loomer say about Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Quick, change the channel.
A Zangief cosplayer, unless they meet a fake Zangief and take him to Arby's. Speaking of which, is Marjorie Taylor Greene still crashing out on MAGA? Huh? Because I'm all in on that too. Oh no, but it got worse. Emily Saves America, aka sometime Fox News contributor Emily Wilson, commented on Hannah's post, poking fun at how small the rock was. She wrote, "The ring size." Sarah and Emily already have beef, so this was way off sides. Sarah responded, Where's your ring, Emily? But the Civil War expanded from there as the right-wingers and treadwives took sides, but it's not just snark or shade. They started accusing each other of some pretty wild stuff. Let's dig in. Morgan Ariel, who worked for Turning Point USA before she was fired over anti-Semitic tweets, blasted Emily, writing, "You gave it up for free, ho. Might want to sit this one out." Now, we actually have already seen Morgan Ariel earlier in the video. Here's some more of her work.
Stop. Don't get a HELOC until you know about HEI. HELOCs are loans. You borrow, pay interest, and make monthly payments. HEI, no interest, no monthly payments. HELOC adds debt, HEI doesn't. You get cash upfront and repurchase your option when you cash settle, refinance, or sell. HELOC, strict credit and income requirements. HEI, 500 minimum credit score based on your home's value with no income requirement. HEI is a smarter way to access your home's value. Check out Splitero.com to see if you are eligible.
Now, she says all white, just so I'm clear. Are Jews allowed as well?
I will never understand for the life of me why TPUSA props up the most detestable, vile human beings who uphold no conservative values. I'm never going to understand it.
Nope. That's a nope. Yep. Okay. Clear. Emily then responded back to Morgan, "Your baby daddy abandoned you. You're raising a bastard child, but yet somehow, some way, you think you're better than me or anyone on this app. You gave it up for free, got left in the dust, and now post rage bait on X to supplement the inadequacy of your monthly child support payments." Damn! Okay. I support what you're doing. I support what you're doing. I'm here for that. However, here's the problem. None of that was an issue until now. Huh? You knew all of that this whole time, but yet y'all were willing to build a community about supremacy and trying to shame other folks for exactly that kind of behavior. Y'all be the first ones wanting to call somebody ghetto and freeloaders when you know all of this about one another and you just let it ride. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with it. You know better than Laura Loomer trying to call Marjorie Taylor Greene out for dropping N's. Now that she accused me of racism, let me say what I know about you. But you so racist, you didn't say a word about that till you got accused of racism. What we doing here? But Morgan wasn't taking that line down. She dropped the most salacious allegation. None of that is true, Emily, but unlike you, I don't lie, so here are some facts. Wow. In the middle of a hotel lobby at a Turning Point USA event while everybody watched and there were families around. Well, now I gotta call out everybody that was at the Turning Point USA event because y'all letting all this go. Now, look, I know y'all right-wingers love to ignore the deviancy in your midst because probably since I've been recording this, some right-wing pastor or politician been popped for something that I can't explain in full on YouTube and still be monetized. How about that? Brother, I know exactly how y'all like to deny the degenerates in your midst, but you just indicted everybody. You said Turning Point USA. Hey, Byron, wasn't you at
Man, was they at Turning Point USA or was that Freaknik? I'm trying to figure out, was that Freaknik or was they at Turning Point USA? This is crazy work. You see what I'm saying? You supposed to be a trad wife. They talking about you getting finger banged in the lobby of Turning Point USA. That's crazy. That's bad work. You're supposed to be a trad wife. So I'm trying to figure this out. Is this a political convention or is this Freaknik? Cause baby says she been ran through by all the conservatives, both married and single. She said baby girl was giving it up, throwing it in a circle, so to speak. Throwing it in a circle, so to speak. So let me let my dog Reese get, because I gotta hear some more of his backstory. So who was getting finger banged in the lobby? Who making content because they baby daddy ain't paying child support? I'm trying to tie these loose ends up.
Huh? Byron. Oh, what, you had your shades on? You ain't see nothing? That's not all. She also claimed to Emily she's known to brag about having sex with married MAGA dads and doing drugs, and that she's been completely ran through by both single and married men in the right wing. She ended with, but yeah, I'm the one who needs money, you gold digging hoe. So yes, I'm better than you. Wow. Wow. Ran through by both single and married men in the right wing. Family values. This be the party of family values. But when they do it,
Automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet.
I am as shocked as finding out that Elon's 14th baby mama was a right-wing influencer. Amazing. Hannah went after Morgan too, writing, I apologize to Morgan Ariel for calling her a single mother with HPV. It was true, but I went too far. Forgive me, Ariel. She did the back. Yeah, that was the backhanded. It was true, but it was true, but I went too far. I'm gonna use that. I'm stealing it. No, but because hey, y'all copying all the people that y'all accuse, bar for bar. Okay, your whole grift is stolen. The fighting spread with more trad wife and e-girls blasting each other in the comments for the past couple days, comparing ring sizes, attacking each other's choice of husband, largely in a racist way. And that's why I brought Black MAGA. They need to see this. Lots of comments against interracial relationships. We'll forego posting those. But some guys got involved too. MAGA influencer and failed congressional candidate Ian Smith blasted Emily's ring size comment, saying, unwed, childless Fox News girl boss who complains when women make sourdough now hates on ring size of a happily engaged young woman. Congrats, bozo. You're a feminist. He got it from Emily with both barrels because she accused him of cheating and even unaliving someone, between allegedly cheating on your wife, being caught with, wow.
Have you ever seen the magic glasses that can see clearly without glasses? This glasses can not only see far away, but also see near. This smart zoom glasses from Japan are really great. No need to wear lenses. The degree can be used from 100 degrees to 700 degrees. The glasses will automatically adapt to your vision, can see clearly far away and near, and are very comfortable to use. It also has the function.
You think that was the same one from the WNBA game? Huh? You think? Because I think, was it green? Was it green? Between being caught with that, unaliving a teenager with your first of 2 DUIs, you really should sit this one out. That is actually a fact. He did hit a 19-year-old with his car while driving under the influence when he was just 20. He did some time in prison for it. Awful story, but now she pressed the nuclear button. And again, I would like to circle back around to all of this was okay until now. That is the beauty of MAGA on MAGA crime. They just take everybody down to the dumpster along with them. Oh, what was it that they said in the Megyn Kelly video? Polarizing. They take everybody down to polarizing. The fighting spread and spread, with more trad wife and e-girls blasting each other in the comments for the past couple days, comparing ring sizes, attacking each other's choice of husband, largely in a racist way. Lots of comments against interracial relationships. We'll forego posting those. Ick. But I won't. And now you see why we got, yeah, come on down. Come on down. And now you see why I brought Black MAGA down here. Because who we have assorted is a list of women that have accused, and some men that have been accused of all manner of deviancy. We've seen green neons in the nether regions. We've seen being ran through. We've seen married men. We talking about bastard children, unaliving somebody. We got it. We got the whole, we got the whole gamut. But they can all agree to be racist. The worst people can agree to be racist. So after the comment of hottest right-wing e-girl taken off the market, we get this quote tweet: quite literally, no single action decimates your value as a woman more than this. Wow. How about that? How about that? Well, this I'm sure is going to go to a good place. Her response: my boyfriend is not black, he is Dominican. Oh my gosh. She didn't just think that. She said it. Now, just to deconstruct, okay? Because for you to even respond that way means that you are co-signing the racial hierarchy that was put out there. So you're co-signing that it would somehow be disreputable for you to be with a black man. Respond that way means that you are oh my gosh. She didn't just think about that. How about that? Well, this I'm sure is going to go to a good place. Decimate your value as a woman. After the comment of hottest right-wing e-girl taken off the market, we get this quote tweet: quite literally, no single action decimates your value as a woman more than this. Wow. How about that? How about that? Well, this I'm sure is going to go to a good place. Her response: my boyfriend is not black, he is Dominican. Oh my gosh. She didn't just think that. She said it. Now, just to deconstruct, okay? Because for you to even respond that way means that you are co-signing the racial hierarchy that was put out there. So you're co-signing that it would somehow be disreputable for you to be with a black man, but then coming back with that he's Dominican, because that's better. That's an improvement for the people whose approval you're trying to gain by denigrating your boyfriend's complexion. Female white supremacists, when they realize they have to F white men to further their race. And that's before we get to the Dominican of it all.
I know black, I know black, I know black. Imposible, I know black. I'm Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican, I know black. Be looking just like me.
And how about the I'm not black, I'm Dominican starter kit right here? Do you got some Beijing in there? I wouldn't be surprised if Byron came in that after the break. We got the Latinos for Trump sign. We got the Bad Bunny album. I'm not Afro-Latina, I'm just Latino. We got his type. Oh, the $sign pendant necklace. Oh my, I feel like they want to rob this off my computer screen. Now, I know some of you might be feeling bad for the original woman who posted the ring, which they apparently found online. Yeah, I believe that was an Etsy special. Hey, at least it wasn't mass produced. Well, if you were, you probably shouldn't. After Matt Walsh gets involved, says the funny thing is that none of the people making fun of this ring are actually wealthy, a bunch of broke wannabes trying to flex about ring size, which of course is only something a broke wannabe would do. We get this lovely gem from the woman whose ring started it all. There may be a cultural issue at hand here, why black people are top consumers but lack wealth. So somehow, you got dragged all up and down the timeline for posting a $69.99 Etsy ring, and you want to blame black people? That's what we're doing? That's what we're doing. Black MAGA. You know what I mean? You needed to see this. You needed to see this. And as a matter of fact, not just y'all need to see this. More people need to see this. And they did. We got Christian Walker involved. This loser was fired from his job for SA and then also had banged my friend 4 times in one night at a conservative conference while he was married and she didn't know. Get your family life together before you speak on mine, adulterer. That from Eli Schaefer, who originally posted really thankful for Herschel Walker's son for helping Democrats secure another seat in the Senate. Oh, it's all coming out. I recommend you not come for me, or I have to tell your wife how you hooked up with my friend at a Turning Point event in 2021 while you were married to her. I don't like cheaters. He said 4 times? Four times in one night?
Hey, it's Adam with Vanish. All right, so what you've just seen right there is me using our laser strike system, which takes a little laser bullet like this inside of your gun and lets you train safely from the comfort of your home so you know exactly where you're shooting and you can become way more accurate safely without having to spend time or money going to the range.